Прийшли окупанти до нас в Україну, форма новенька, воєнні машини, та трохи поплавився їх інвентар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Російські танкісти сховались в кущі, щоб лаптем посьорбати довбані щі, та трохи у чах перегрівся навар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Приперли зі сходу до нас барани для восстановлення
великої страни.
Найкращий пастух баранячих отар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Їх доводи всяке озброєння різне, потужні ракети, машини залізні, у нас на всі доводи є коментар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Вони захопити хотіли нас зразу, а ми зачаїли на орків образу з російських бандитів, робить примар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Російська поліція справи заводить, там вбивцю рашистів ніяк не знаходить, хто винен, що в нашому полі глухар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Веде пропаганду кремлівський урод, слова пропаганди ковтає народ, тепер нове слово знає цар.
Байрактар.
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 Yes.
The Leaf Spring Army sends its regards.
Hello, everyone. I'm the Enforcer, and I'm accompanied by Enforcer Matt.
And good evening, folks. It's Enforcer Matt, and welcome back to day 832 of the news. And it's good to see you all once again. And once again, Putin is running scared, and Ukraine is smashing those Russians. And it's good to see you all once again.
And of course, we're going to be covering the past 48 hours of the news of the war in Ukraine, as we have gotten massive news today that Ukrainian forces outnumber the Russian Federation's armed forces in Vovchansk nearly 3 to 5 to 1. Meaning that they massively outnumber Russian forces in this area, and that a counteroffensive is going to be wildly successful in this moment. We were also able to get additional news of other frontline fighting happening in other areas of the Ukrainian front line, specifically in Bakhmut and Avdiivka, and we were also able to see that the Russians have been putting out propaganda in Paris outside of the Russian embassy, stating that the French should surrender before they go to war with the Russians or otherwise face the consequences. We've been seeing a whole bunch of insane stuff today. A whole wide variety, really. There's no other better way to explain it. But most of it being from the battlefields of Ukraine. And also another interesting thing that we also have to note is that at the moment, right now while we're talking, we have seen that there have been some continued escalations in between China and Taiwan. Although we will not be covering that here on this stream, we do plan on making a special long-form video documentary about this situation and what a possible conflict in between China and Taiwan would look like, at least within its beginning weeks and months of the conflict. But with that, I hope I addressed at least the top points of the news tonight incredibly well, and it's time for us to get directly on into the Vovchansk front. We were able to see that massive amounts of activity have evolved in this area, but according to Deep State State UA, there have been no frontline changes to speak of, at least over the past 24 to 48 hours, which we can see right here. There appears to have been absolutely no frontline change, although we have heard the Ukrainian forces were able to push their way up into the northern end of Vovchansk, driving the Russians from the central hospital, which is still shown to be controlled by the Russians on the map. We do understand that Ukrainian forces are in control of that hospital at the moment, according to our information. And not only that, we also understand that in the area around the Plina front, that Ukrainian forces have been able to make it up into the area of the tree line just west of Lukyantsy and are currently staying within this area at the moment. We do not have any information to suggest that they have advanced during that time, but nevertheless, we were able to get today a map that looks to be incredibly accurate of the force dispositions of both sides and what this front line may evolve into in the future. And so we got this nice little map right here. This looks incredibly bizarre and kind of a little bit weird if you don't really know what you're looking at. But I can assure y'all that this makes a lot of sense when you know the division emblems and symbols involved. Particularly, what we can note is that it appears that the Russians mostly have battalion-sized or regiment-sized units that are currently involved in the Plina front. Almost all of them, almost every single one of them, is some kind of a light infantry force, not that heavy. And we can also see over here that we have a very, very light force. It looks to be some kind of airborne infantry of a sort that were dropped off in this area, which is a little interesting, but nevertheless, it is showing us that the Plina front, as far as we are concerned, has really absolutely no backing at all in actual terms of firepower or combat abilities. We can also see that apparently this area is made up of some kind of what I would say is a division level unit. And let me make sure to go get my NATO symbology correct, NATO unit symbols, and let me make sure that we're getting the sizes correct, because 1x is a brigade above the rectangle. 2x, I believe, is a division. So let me make sure to double check that, so that way we can make sure to get the size correct. It is, in fact, a division. So this appears to be a Russian division, some kind of a mechanized division, that has been broken up into, largely from what we can understand to be, not really that advanced of a force. We don't really see any mechanized units currently dedicated to the Plina front by the Russians. It appears to mostly be air mobile infantry, which we can see over here on this far corner, which is about a regiment in size. And we can also see that additionally, there really is no other kind of like heavy infantry really in the entire area. However, over in the Vovchansk front, the story is a little bit different. While they have two mechanized divisions somewhere in the rear lines, one up north near Shebekino, and another one that appears to possibly be in reserve near Oktyabrysky towards the western area, the armored division at Shebekino is currently involved in the fighting around Vovchansk. And it does have two, I believe, armored regiments that are currently involved in this area, and then once again completely supported, oddly enough, by almost nothing but light infantry, which is really bizarre to see, that there is absolutely no mechanized infantry to speak of based off of the force disposition that we got today. And then in kind of in the support lines, we can see that they have two entire artillery brigades supporting the Plina and Vovchansk front, and then an artillery regiment that appears to be attached to the Vovchansk front completely. Then on the other side, because of course we just talked about the Russians, but what about the Ukrainians? The Ukrainians are absolutely stacked. I mean, there's really no other way to put it. From what we can tell, they have an entire mechanized brigade, mechanized brigade sitting in the area around Nekatiivka that we understand isn't even involved in the combat at the moment. Then we have another entire security brigade, or more so like a military police brigade that is in the area around this front, and a second one. We then also have what appears to be some kind of a special aviation company, perhaps, or a battalion right here. We can also see that they have a large amount of special operations forces in all areas of the front line. We can also see right there, that little anchor infantry unit that you can hardly see on the map. That is actually Madyar's unit. That is the 36th Infantry Brigade, or at least a part of it that was moved up into the Vovchansk front. Once again, we can see another military police brigade in the area. These are the Ukrainian police that we have seen fighting in Vovchansk so far. That's their unit represented on the map. A whole bunch of special operations forces again. The Ukrainians mostly have, just like the Russians, a higher level of lighter infantry. We can also see some airborne infantry that is in the rear lines, as well as what appears to be maybe the presidential brigade of the Ukrainian armed forces that is in the area as well. And generally overall, from what we understand, the Ukrainians have about 100 battalions of combat power in this area, going up against an incredibly small Russian force. It's wildly small compared to the Ukrainian one, and a lot of people are wondering, what does all this breakdown mean? This almost sounds like it means practically nothing, but it actually means a lot. It means that the Ukrainians right now are outnumbering Russian forces around 5-1 at the moment. And that is something that is showing that the Ukrainians are going to be conducting their full counteroffensive here in the very near future. We have already understood that there was apparently a preliminary offensive phase that had begun, and it looks as though it didn't have any major ambitions, because we've already heard that that's largely rounded out, and it looks to have been probing attacks to find out where Russian forces may be their weakest along the lines. We understand that the main offensive may be coming soon, and based off of those troop numbers that we're getting right now, it is wildly certain that it will be coming around much sooner rather than later. A number advantage of 3-1 is usually what U.S. doctrine emphasizes for an offensive operation against a defending enemy force. Chinese military doctrine actually dictates a 5-1 advantage over enemy forces to be able to conduct an offensive. Right now, the Ukrainians actually have the Chinese number advantage, doctrinally, which is 5-1, meaning that a Ukrainian counteroffensive that could push the Russians out of this area would be entirely possible, just given the force disposition, and that the Ukrainian forces are right now, in this specific front line, massively outnumbering Russian forces. Not only that, but we also assume that the Russians have a very low amount of reserve units that are currently available for frontline action, and also we understand they have a wildly low amount of armor that is available in this entire front. Going off of all of this, we know that the Ukrainian offensive effort would most likely end up being successful, and we are going to be waiting to see when that actual offensive kicks off. In the meantime, there's been a lot of action that's gone on in this area just today that was recorded on video footage. One of our first clips showed us a T-80 that was immediately destroyed before it actually entered the area around Plina. We can see the T-80 racing through the field right here.
And look at it go. It's flying out there.
Look at it go. Now it's getting in the trees. And it's crawling around up there in the trees, just kind of enjoying life. We now see it trying to roll on along. We can now see that it's getting into the border area, and we can already see some of the destruction that's been caused by artillery fire, as it's still racing on its way. A single tank with no support.
And this footage isn't sped up or anything. It's just like normal speed.
Oh, this footage is way sped up. I think it's like 5 times speed.
That thing is bucking it. That thing is flying.
That thing would be going like 80 miles an hour right now if this was real time. Like, this thing would be going physically impossible speeds for this tank, because I think this thing can only go about 35 miles an hour at its top speed. But it is booking it in the sped up footage. And we see the drone making sure to keep an eye on it as it continues to roll on its way from the Russian border towards the Ukrainian front lines that are currently around Lipsy and Lakove.
Oh, it looks like he slowed down a bit.
And it looks like he ran over some kind of anti-personnel mine, or an anti-tank mine, possibly. Now that's freaked them out. They're going to turn around, I think. Yep, they're turning around and they're now routing from the field. A single anti-personnel mine, from what we can tell, went off. It doesn't even look like it really damaged the tank, and that was literally enough, perfectly enough, for the entire Russian crew to go, oh crap, get out of here, and they immediately turned around and started driving away. Now showing their rear to the Ukrainian forces, and of course a much more vulnerable position for this tank to be in.
Man, that was so comical. Like, full speed ahead, like 60-mile-an-hour sped-up footage, like right to the front line. One little bomb goes off. Yikes, head back to base. We've done our duty.
Dude, they went, yeah. They turn around and start dropping away. And there they go. They're going right back out where they came. And they're still going.
Too much. I'm sure the Ukrainians were shocked. They're like, oh, well, that wasn't as hard as we thought.
And now it looks like they're going to be finishing it off with an FPV drone. That tank is not getting anywhere fast, by the way. It's going about 30 miles an hour. This is real-time footage at real speed. And we can see it going right into the... And oh my. This was a little bit later, but it looks like it ended up turning into Hell Rider for a little bit down the road, came to a stop pretty quickly, and it now burned to the ground. The ammunition and fuel catching on fire, completely destroying the vehicle. As you can see, armored activity, even in limited numbers in the Polina front, is being faced with incredibly high losses, and not only that, the Russian tankers involved in these offensives have dreadfully low morale. And we can see that it literally took one anti-personnel mine exploding near the tank to have them turn around and begin to flee the battlefield. With that, that's the end of that clip, but we're now going to be moving on into our next one, where we also got to see some pictures of some of the special operation forces that are in the area around Lipsy. This was a picture taken right in front of the sign of Lipsy, and we can see right here a nice little variety of AR-style rifles. I believe these may be indigenously made Ukrainian ARs. We can also see one of the older generation EOTech sights. We actually got one of those from Andy L. Huge shout out to him. It's the exact model and make and everything. And we can also see over here that there are some medium to maybe long-range scopes on the other ARs, and then we can see right here in the middle, this absolutely massive, I'm assuming, I actually would not know what rifle that is, Matthew. Can you tell what kind of rifle this is in the dead center?
I was about to say maybe it's an alligator, but I think that's a little bit too short even for the alligator. It looks like some type of maybe like a SHATAC, maybe like a sniper rifle or something. I really can't tell. I can't see it up close.
It's some kind of a bolt-action rifle. I cannot tell what specific kind it is, but it is pretty nice, and it also has a massive, what appears to be an infrared scope on top of it, which is wildly expensive, by the way. But moving on from that little picture around Lipsy and showing some of the special forces that are there, we also got to see some Ukrainian Uragans firing at Russian targets. If the video loads. This video will probably not be loading. Really quickly, just to share this with y'all, while we see if this video will even load at all. Earlier when I was trying to put this together, I started to notice that Reddit was having a bit of an issue, apparently a server issue today, loading videos and playing them, and it appears that we're having this issue live on air, and that some of these videos may just not end up playing. So I'll just quickly recap what this video was showing. It was showing a Ukrainian heavy artillery brigade with, I believe, 300mm launchers is what the Uragan is, firing their rockets in support of Ukrainian forces in the distance. Heavy artillery is meant to break up enemy forces decisively as compared to light artillery or medium artillery, which is usually for mass saturation, as in the mortars, or in more precise strikes for medium artillery, at least how the Ukrainians are using them. But these Uragans are meant to completely decimate either an artillery unit, a supply hub, or any other kind of major installation behind the lines and completely level it. But moving on from that little bit of news, which it appears the video will not load no matter what, we are now going to be moving on into the area behind the lines near Vovchansk, where we also get to see Ukrainian 122mm 2S1 Avdiivka firing in the area. This video will load, and so here's the clip. We can see them running to the Avdiivka, and thank you, Reese Ridings. It's actually a 220mm MLRS system, not a 300mm. I believe the Smirch is a 330 or something like that. We now see them uncovering the Avdiivka.
Когда такой ствол поднимать можно?
306, вот один, 45-50, 45-50, на высоте.
Now see them getting in the Avdiivka and getting ready to fire.
Готовы?
Да.
Пост!
Firing.
Езжай!
We now see them throwing out the shell casing.
По-разному, як, ну, в пределах 10 плюс-мінус. Буває більше, буває 20.
Якщо вже є ціль, то
Да, і строго по цілі.
Якщо планова ціль, то по плановій роботі, але якщо безпілотник коректує.
Першому прицел 302, 302.
They're now ready to fire again.
302 по готовності, да.
Перший да, по готовності да.
This Avdiivka is incredibly clean compared to normal. We now see them loading the next shell. interestingly enough, it appears that they're starting to change how the Avdiivka operates, because usually, and let me see if I can actually get y'all a cutaway of a 2S1 Avdiivka to show y'all a major change that they're doing here. So let's see, 2S1 cutaway. Let me see if I can get us one of those. So here we go. I think this is actually a cutaway of the Avdiivka. So yeah, this is it. Perfect. All right, so we got it exactly on the dot what I needed. So this is the insides of a Avdiivka SPG. This is it right here. By the way, did I ever tell y'all that the Avdiivka is amphibious? Like, I never mentioned that. But it is amphibious. It's just that I've never seen one in the water before. But technically, they are. Anyways, moving on from that, something that is really interesting about the Avdiivka is that, like many SPGs, as it is normal, it carries its ammunition inside of the SPG itself. And you can actually see that represented on the diagram here. They're usually stowed in a compartment right beside the crew compartment at the turret, and the loader will pull out the rounds and manually load them. The Avdiivka does not have an auto-loader like most Soviet main battle tanks would. This is an artillery system, so they decided to forego the auto-loader on the Avdiivka and instead just have a crew of 4 with a loader in that crew. But nevertheless, they do not have any ammunition inside of this Avdiivka, and they possibly have done this to reduce the chance of a critical detonation of the ammunition stores inside of the SPG, leading to the complete destruction of the vehicle if it was ever attacked by a Russian drone. So instead of keeping the ammunition in the SPG, they now hand load each shell from outside of the SPG, and they're pretty much using it a lot like towed artillery would, bringing in the ammunition from somewhere else and then loading it into the gun that's a part of the SPG. And I'll show y'all this again right here. Notice that instead of grabbing for the ammunition storage in the vehicle, he reaches out for a shell that's being handed to him from outside of the Avdiivka and then starts to load the SPG. This is a much slower and more cumbersome process, but it does greatly reduce the chance of an FPV drone by the Russians completely destroying the SPG and all of the ammunition along with it. We now see the guns ready to fire. They fire. The propellant casing pops out. We can see 2 attempts to move it through the hatch that failed. Let's observe that one more time. Dunk, dunk, and then he moved it out. So it made it all the way out. And that was the process of firing just 2 shells, but nevertheless showing that Ukrainian tactics in operations of their SPGs in pre-prepared firing positions like this, where the SPG generally stays in a single location, have massively changed since the beginning of the war. Now taking the rounds out of the vehicle and leaving the vehicle completely devoid of ammunition unless if the crew is operating and firing the gun. But moving on from that little bit of video footage, we were also able to see that apparently in the area right behind Vovchansk, that a Ukrainian T-80U, as a part of the 93rd Brigade, has been brought into the area. The 93rd Brigade is usually based in the southern Bakhmut region, but from what we were able to understand, it seems as though that this may have been closer to Vovchansk. The training fields for the 93rd are generally within the area of Kharkiv, so that's why it's kind of close to the area, but still, pretty cool to see a T-80U from the Soviet Union, actually. Well, actually the Russian army, captured and being used by the 93rd Brigade. Also, quick gun check. It appears that everyone in the 93rd at this training is using an AKM. No one is using an AK-74, and they all look to be fairly basic variants of the AKM. No grenade launchers attached or anything like that. I usually believe that AKMs did not have grenade launchers, but still, interesting to note. But moving on from that and behind the lines in Vovchansk, we also got to see some destroyed Russian vehicles in exceedingly large amounts. This is a Tiger armored car that was destroyed on the road. We can actually see 2 of those little Chinese Bing Chilling ATVs got destroyed in the same spot, along with a lot
of... Oh no, not the Chinese casualties again. It's a shame.
Bing Chilling. But beyond that, we also got to see in another picture the Tiger armored car destroyed again and actually on fire, showing that that kill was a very recent one by Ukrainian forces. Moving on from that and into the next picture, we can once again see the fuel leaking out of the back and burning the vehicle, And then finally, in the last one, we can see what appears to be the Tiger before it was hit by a second drone, which caused the detonation of the fuel. One thing that's really wild, though, is that Tiger armored cars have shown again and again that they're not necessarily armored well or at all. FPV drones have had incredible ease of destroying these vehicles as compared to Max Pro vehicles provided by Ukraine, provided to Ukraine by the United States, which have shown a very high resilience against usual shoulder-fired anti-tank weapons like the RPG-7. So really interesting to see that the Tiger is really probably one of the weakest armored cars that are currently in the war, right next to the Rochelle Senator, which has been provided by Canada, and from what we understand, its armor rating simply is not high enough to protect against shoulder-mounted anti-tank weapons for the most part. It can end up getting seriously damaged or completely knocked out because it wasn't really made for those kinds of conditions. The Rochelle Senator armored car was made more so for civilian protection purposes than wartime protection purposes for modern infantry. But moving on from that little bit of news and on up into the area around Shebekino, we did get to see that the Ukrainians are starting to emphasize the use of the HIMARS on Russian soil a lot now that they've been given permission. From what we've heard, this was 6 HIMARS GMLRS missiles that ended up hitting a Russian supply base in Shebekino, Belgorod, and this was the end result. The building was completely leveled. We do not know what was inside of this supply yard, whether it be ammunition, fuel, or any other kind of supplies that would be needed to keep the Russian army running just a little bit further south, but it does appear that the HIMARS missiles were able to completely knock out the building and really burn it to a good, nice, crispy cinder. On top of that, it was able to make nice, fine piles of rubble on the ground out of parts of the building. Overall, really nice to see. But beyond that, we also got something that was pretty interesting way behind the lines to see today. A Russian substation near to the area of the city of Belgorod was burning. And here's the clip right here. We don't know if this was a partisan attack or Ukrainian drone attack, but still, very nice to see that more substations are on fire and being burned around the area. Meanwhile, we also got to see something that was even more shocking, and this is something that a lot of people were like, how in the world can you get more shocking in this front? You can, I promise you, because we got to see that a Polish-bought drone that the Ukrainians are using right now was able to fly at high altitude into Russian territory and film the city of Belgrade. We were able to get a single frame of the drone's film right here, and this is downtown Belgorod that this drone is looking at from a little bit of a distance, but not that far away from Belgrade, maybe just a few miles away at the farthest. And it was able to get this kind of a film. This is something that we have never seen the Ukrainians do before. Of course, the United States has provided, through the Maxar satellite, a large amount of picture evidence and picture information or intelligence to the Ukrainians about what Russian forces' positions are and where they are moving, which is a very important thing. But we've never seen that the Ukrainians have been able to fly in a drone like this and begin to get video footage live from the area. This is really the first time ever, and from what we can tell, and let me go into central Belgrade here and show y'all what this was looking at. From what we understand, because you can actually see the smokestack right here, and you can see those in the background right over here, this drone was somewhere to the southeast of the city, somewhere near the Seversky Donets River passing through Belgrade, and ended up looking from about probably right here over this wooded area, over downtown Belgrade, and then kind of at downtown Belgrade and this industrial area that's just to the north and west of the city. That's apparently what this drone was getting some footage of, and that is very interesting, because with this kind of ability for Ukrainian drones to pretty much fly unimpeded over Russian territory and over the city of Belgrade, the Ukrainians will be able to target their artillery at Russian units that are in the city in real time and hit them and destroy them probably a lot more effectively than they have been in the past. This also opens up the use of the HIMARS in much more frequent use, particularly in and around the city area, as long as they're not putting any civilian lives at great risk with those strikes. But nevertheless, while Ukraine is constantly getting support from Western countries, this drone was actually provided by Poland and is currently being used by the Ukrainians in this role. A lot of people heard a little bit of an interesting statement today, and we're not going to be reporting it as hardcore news, but the statement in itself was something that provoked a little bit of thought, and this statement came from the United States of America. Now, I do have to say that sometimes there have been statements made from the office of the president that have immediately been backpedaled by the U.S. government, so we cannot state this as a fact yet until we see if there's any backpedaling or not on this, But nevertheless, we did hear today that according to the United States government, that Ukraine doesn't need to be a NATO member to guarantee the peace in the region. And a lot of people have been throwing in their thoughts on that statement. Some people are saying that NATO is the only way for peace in this region, and not only that, it is a part of our strategic interests and concerns to bring NATO closer to Russia and into Ukraine. It is not just a matter of keeping the peace, it's a matter of ensuring the peace through strong conventional deterrence within the area, and also making sure to deny the Russians any access to be able to sway or possibly bring over countries in Eastern Europe to their side. A massive strategic implication. Some people are also saying that Ukraine doesn't need to be in NATO. Some people are saying that the peace probably could be had by having them not in NATO. Sure, they could join the European Union and get all of the economic benefits of being a European Union member, but that doesn't mean that the United States has to make sure that Ukraine becomes a part of NATO or that the rest of Europe owes them any sort of a defensive alliance of any kind to keep the peace. Just ending the war alone will ensure the peace, according to this group of people who are saying that Ukraine doesn't need to be in NATO. Some other people are saying that a security guarantee would work instead. And those folks are arguing that a security guarantee by the West is pretty much the same thing as being in NATO. By giving them a security guarantee, of course, something much more than a memorandum, most likely some sort of a defensive pact, maybe agreed to by the United States and maybe some of the major powers of NATO alone, they will be able to ensure the peace without having Ukraine directly in NATO, but really getting the same achieved result of having Ukraine with a Western protection from larger Western countries. A lot of people have had many different ideas. Those are just some of the few that I've seen in the chat about what the United States said today. And I've seen that people are continuously talking about what that statement meant and whether they agreed or disagreed with the notion that Ukraine doesn't have to be in NATO to ensure peace within the Eastern European region. But Matthew, what are people really thinking about that? And what are you thinking about that statement as well?
So it looks like about 49% of the audience said no, NATO is the only way for peace in Ukraine, while 29% said Ukraine really does not need to be in NATO, and 14% said I think a security guarantee would work on its own. And on this one, honestly, this was a bit of a shock to me because we've seen the chairman of NATO itself, which is Stoltenberg, he's come out and repeatedly said that Ukraine will be in NATO after the war is over. And obviously, Ukraine is in an active conflict, so they currently cannot join NATO according to the NATO rules. And I don't think anybody's really advocating for them to join NATO right this moment, but there's been a lot of talk around the world and the NATO leadership saying that Ukraine will be in after the war is over. And now there seems to be a complete reversal coming out of the U.S. saying that there's no need for Ukraine to become a NATO member. But in my opinion, I would say to guarantee peace in Ukraine that Russia will not invade them again. Honestly, I think NATO is the only way for peace. So I'm with the 49%. I simply think that a security guarantee would be the equivalent of the memorandum that we signed, the Budapest Memorandum, which turned out to be meaningless. So unless Ukraine is like hardline in the NATO alliance, I don't think Ukraine is actually going to feel safe. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would have to say that in my opinion, giving them a security agreement would be ridiculous. It's really what's gotten us into the situation right now. The Budapest Memorandum, which was not an enforceable agreement, by the way, just want to put that out there. A memorandum is not a binding or really enforceable agreement, and even defensive pacts aren't really binding or enforceable. In fact, any agreement from country to country, it's not like if someone violates that agreement, there's some kind of a court that they will settle in over the issue. It's just that you could screw over another country if you don't agree to defend your pacts or defend the nations that you have defensive pacts with. That's actually the reality of the situation. But beyond that, a memorandum is kind of like the best way I can explain it is kind of like a statement in words alone. It's not put down into writing, and for that reason, it can kind of be argued a little bit later that you didn't really mean to defend them all the way. A defensive pact, however, is a actual agreement where the United States would say, just in the instance of America, this can be done by any country. It could be done by France, Germany, or the United Kingdom and Poland as well. But it's where they say, if you are attacked, we promise, like there is no backing off of this at all. We promise we will be there to help y'all and defend with y'all against the invading attacker. That's what a defensive pact is. And a defensive pact is a lot stronger of a bond in terms of defense than a memorandum. A pact is something that NATO really is. NATO is really nothing more than a collective defensive pact. and to explain the best way it works, at the beginning, let's just say at the very, very beginning, when it was really just Western Europe alone that was in NATO, the United States, Canada, the United Kingdom, France, I believe Portugal, Belgium, the Netherlands, and West Germany would say, hey, Italy, and we're just using this as an example. Italy was already in NATO, but hey, Italy, you want to be in NATO, right? So if you sign this little agreement and you begin the ascension process, we will all collectively sign defensive pacts with you, where if you're attacked, we will all defend you. We all have a defensive pact of our own with Italy. But in return, Italy has to make a defensive pact with all of us, meaning that if any of us are attacked, Italy will come to the aid or the defense of that country that's been attacked. And it's like that everywhere. NATO is a massive web of defensive pacts that have been put together by every single country in the alliance, guaranteeing that every other country in the alliance will be able to count on them in their defense if they were attacked. That's what NATO is. So a defensive pact with the Ukraine, just with the United States alone, would pretty much have half the backing power that NATO normally has, because the United States really makes up about half of NATO in force number. But the problem with that is, then we have one point of failure, which is the United States. If the United States in the future saw that Ukraine got attacked again, and they just wanted to act like the pact was non-enforceable, they could. And that's a bit of an issue. I think it would be a lot better for them to become a part of NATO to ensure the peace, because hasn't everyone seen how well the peace has been ensured with Poland and the Baltic states? For over 2 years now, Putin has made it very clear that his ambitions go beyond Ukraine. They go into the Baltics and they go into Poland as well. And he wants to invade these countries and take them over. And time again, we have seen that he has not done that because Poland and the Baltic states are members of NATO. And that means that they can count on every country in NATO, really in the entirety of Europe and the North Atlantic as a whole, to come to the defense of those countries if they were attacked or invaded by Belarusian or Russian forces. Going off of that, I feel like bringing them into NATO, bringing Ukraine into NATO, would ensure the peace a lot more than just having a security guarantee with them. Also, I would say that it would be best not to do nothing, where the war ends and Ukraine doesn't enter NATO, and they also don't get any defensive pact, because who's to say, with that kind of outcome in mind, Putin is able to solidify his control of the government, crack down heavily, and begin incredibly massive purges. And then in, say, 5 to 7 years' time, he begins another war with Ukraine. And there's absolutely nothing that can be done. The situation will be the same then, when the second Ukraine war starts, than it was in the first one. Ukraine doesn't have any defensive pacts, no defensive agreements. They're not a part of NATO. They are as open and vulnerable to another Russian attack as they were in the original war that started a few years ago. So going off of that, I would certainly say that NATO and NATO membership is the key to peace within Eastern Europe. There is peace through strength, and we have seen that multiple times during the time of the Cold War and even in the modern day against the Russians. It's when there is no defensive pact that war begins. Wars like the war in Chechnya and the war in Georgia, which no one had a defensive pact with, and then with Ukraine, and no one had a defensive pact with Ukraine. So that is certainly, in my opinion, not the way forward. The way forward is NATO membership and bringing them on into the fold and making them another NATO country. But with that,
at least if they were in NATO, like you said, you wouldn't have just that one point of failure, which would be the United States. And I know that a security guarantee is a little bit more solid than a memorandum. That is true. However, that does not negate the fact that the U.S. could try to waffle on it, even if it was in writing with a security guarantee. So I think, like you said, it is better if they're in NATO, because that way, if they invoke Article 5, it would have to go up for a vote, and that way the entire NATO alliance could weigh in on it instead of just the United States, which could leave them high and dry depending on the time.
It really could, and there's a lot that goes on in there's a decent bit that goes on in America on a governmental level, is the best way I can say it, because I'm wanting to make sure that I step on eggshells here while saying this. There's a decent bit that happens on an American governmental level that could see the United States continue or really overextend being the world police, or almost become isolationist while leading the sphere. And depending on that ebb and flow, which, by the way, is I have to make this very clear so that way people don't try and make this a political thing. both sides have ended up being isolationist and world police in different historical instances just over the past 40 years. So don't say it's so-and-so group that is like that, because it's really both of them depending on who's in charge and who has to really be the backbone of the group. But beyond that, that could end up posing problems in the future, because like with Taiwan, for example, let's say that China really does go to war with Taiwan here really soon. What's to stop them? Like what would stop them? Like, for right now, for all we know, the United States could go, well, I mean, they're kind of on their own. You know, although we have a defensive pact with them, we could just say that. And who knows if we would or wouldn't. And so I feel like it would be better to tie it into a defensive pact group like NATO. And I also think that we need to start working on a much more comprehensive defensive alliance in Eastern Europe. We do have one right now, actually, but I feel like we need to make it a little bit more extensive, including Japan, South Korea, Taiwan, the Philippines, Australia, New Zealand, and also, if possible, Indonesia as well, and maybe even Vietnam, into a combined defensive pact, so that way we can help to further the idea of Chinese containment within the region. But with that, I hope that does address that the best I can, at least in my opinion. And with that, it is now time for us to move on into a couple of questions, because I'm actually seeing, man, that some folks have thrown in some questions, and what do we got?
All right, so our first super chat of the night is going to go to Joseph Andronako, who puts in a $50 donation. And huge shout out to Joseph for that support. That is massive. And thank you very much, Joseph, for that. He says, I received my 2 LSA shirts to add to my 2 coffee mugs, and they are awesome. He says he sent 2 pics wearing them, and he hoped that Matt keeps them top secret. And yes, Joseph, I did see those earlier today, and we will keep them top secret. By the way, if y'all send us any pictures of y'all wearing the merch or anything like that, we are not going to show it on the channel without asking permission first. That would be a huge OPSEC violation to do that, so we'd obviously always ask first. But Joseph did have those shirts, and they look super cool. My favorite, personally, is the military green. That looks super sick, but the black one also looks pretty cool as well. But thank you very much for getting the merch and also supporting the channel. But Enforcer, what say you?
And I gotta thank you massively as well, Joseph Andronako, for the incredible support, and not only that, for getting some LSA t-shirts. They are good looking, and I think ours are going to be arriving very, very soon. I think within the next day or two, so I'm going to start wearing those around. And also, I love to hear that you got 2 of them to match your 2 mugs. Isn't that cool? And also, speaking of which, just for y'all to know, because this is still something that's going on because we actually extended it. If you go to officialenforcerstore.com, the t-shirts and the patches are still available, and they're actually going to be available until the end of Thursday night's stream. So you can actually still get one of these. You can get it, well, not just one of them, you can get as many of them as you want. You could get an unlimited number of t-shirts, you could get an unlimited number of patches, and it's going to be ending the end of the stream this Thursday instead of what it was supposed to do, which was end at the end of the stream on Saturday of last week. So if you want one, let me go through the little spiel really quickly, so that way we can make sure to plug this thing mercilessly. The t-shirts are $25 a piece. That's about the cheapest price that we can make them. They come in black, military green, charcoal, navy. They also come in light blue and light pink. They range in size from small to 5XL, and they are made out of the finest quality cotton that we could find, which is American cotton. Some people will say that it's Egyptian. I believe it's American all the way, because what is better than the good old US of A? But beyond that, it is a Gildan unisex crewneck t-shirt. It is of the regular classic style, ensuring a really relaxed fit, meaning that you will always be comfortable in the Lee Spring Army and in your shirt, just as it should be. Not only that, but 10% of the profits from the shirt and from the patch go to the to United 24 and help out the Ukrainian war effort. I don't know why I had such a hard time saying that part, but also the patch. The patch is only available to American viewers at the moment. We are going to be opening this up, though. We have finally come up with a way, I believe, from what I heard last time from Matthew, where we will be able to get this to international viewers, but there will be a bit of a change that we have to make that possible. But beyond that, it is made of PVC material, and we actually got these things in. They are insanely
they're so nice.
Cool.
They're so nice.
They are so freaking nice. We actually were able to like hold them. Like the t-shirts, we don't really get to hold those too much. But the patches, oh, we get to hold them. And let me show y'all the picture that we have of them. So let me see if it'll load really quickly. Actually, let me see if I can just do this instead.
Oh, you got the picture of me piling them on the desk. I forgot.
Yeah, I got it. Here is the picture of all of them on the desk right now in Matthew's room.
Yeah.
And it is, they are so freaking nice, y'all. Like, of course, we got some for ourselves in the massive delivery of them that we had. And I put one on my bulletproof vest, and it looks sick. I mean, it is absolutely incredible. And PVC is such a high quality patch. I mean, the detail is insane. Let me see if I can get the picture larger and then zoom in on it, which I can't. But you can actually see the incredibly high detail that these things have. The design is actually raised off the back of the patch. I mean, it is absolutely incredible. I mean, these things are amazing, and we are so excited to get them out to y'all. We already started packing them and getting them ready to ship, so we should be able to get loads of these things out here soon. But if y'all want one, and you're an American viewer, they're only $10 a piece. So we tried to make them as cheap as physically possible. They are made of PVC material. It's about 4.5 inch by 2.5 inch. So, you know, it's a fairly decent sized patch. I mean, on my bulletproof vest, it actually takes up a good bit of room. And some of y'all are wondering why I have a bulletproof vest. Let's see. So it said, "Dang, you have a bulletproof vest?" Yeah, Paddington, we do. I have one just because of the lunatics. You never know. So I had to make sure to get one. But I put it on there so that way, if the lunatics ever did show up, they would know it was the Lee Spring Army up here in this house. But beyond that, it is absolutely incredible looking. And if y'all want to get one, if y'all want to get millions of them, you can. You can go straight to the website at officialenforcerstore.com. The link is in the description right below the stream, and you can get an unlimited quantity of these things if you want to. So make sure to get one while you can. Not to make that limited time offer deal, but it really is a limited time offer. We're only going to be running this merch run until the end of the stream on Thursday, meaning that you have today, tomorrow, and the next day of this stream to be able to try and get these things before we end the run. And once it's over, it's over. We might not be bringing back the LSA flag patch for quite some time. We will in the future, but it will not be for a good time. So make sure to get one while you can, because if not, you know, you'll miss out. You'll miss out on such a beautiful patch and also a beautiful t-shirt. But with that, I hope that does address that.
Also, just to answer a question out of the live chat real quick, I saw Ramius Builds. He said, "Do the patches have Velcro on the back?" And yes, they do. There's a actual, like, the hook part of the Velcro is sewn onto the patch itself, and it also includes the loop backing, which you can put on pretty much any surface, and it'll attach to it. So it's all in one. It's sewn onto the back, and it's all together. So it does come with both pieces.
Yeah, and so I hope that does address that well, so that way y'all do know what's on the back of them. Because it's not just a patch where you have to, like, put the Velcro on and everything. It does come with the Velcro already attached to the patch. So make sure to get some while you can, because they are really cool. I'm kind of biased because there are patches, but they are incredibly cool, and the t-shirts are also incredibly good as well. And so with that, I hope that does address that the best I can, but still, Joseph Antronaco, thank you so much for the support to this channel, helping us to keep this thing running, and not only that, getting a set of LSA t-shirts and a set of mugs. It helps out this channel, it helps out Ukraine as well, and I gotta thank you so much for being such a big member of the Lee Spring Army to help out the channel, both in Super Chats and also by supporting us through the merch sales. And so, thank you so much once again. I hope that does address that well, and with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and our next one is going to go to a channel legend. It's BC Skyman, and he threw in a $50 donation. Huge shout out to BC once again for that support. And let's see here, he threw in a super sticker of the YouTube creature on the rocket going off into the distance. I'm going to call that a HIMARS, and it's heading to a Russian target. And the man is going to jump off before he hits it, so he doesn't blow up. But anyways, thank you very much, BC Skyman, for that support and the cool super sticker. And with that, Enforcer, what say you?
And I gotta say, man, you're wrong. It's not a HIMARS. It's actually a Hwasong 13. Because it's a Hwasong 13. Also, Matthew, by the way, while I was reading that book the other day, you know, the Chinese military book, I actually saw it, Matthew. They called the Chinese drone. I think you'll remember the one I'm talking about. They called it Wing Long. Yeah, they called it Wing Long in the book. Dude, they were like, Chinese drone forces are rapidly expanding. Currently, it appears that one of their primary surveillance drones is the Wing Long. And I was like, no way! I was like, that's actually what they're calling it. Like, it really is what it's called. That's its actual name, is Wing Long. Like, I'm not even kidding. But also, really quickly, speaking of like correcting Matthew out of a joke, the reason why I'm doing that is it's a great segue for me to explain what is coming in the future. As many of y'all know, the East Asian area is an area that we hardly talk about on the stream, but many of y'all are really interested in. A lot, actually. And it's something that we've been wanting to move into for quite some time. As I talked about a little bit last week, I have been reading in as much detail as available and possible on Chinese military abilities and Chinese doctrinal, well, it's not really a doctrine. That's the thing with China. But beyond that, Chinese military abilities is the best way I can say it, or their fighting strategy and tactics, which is something that is actually in-depth and really interesting because it actually is similar to the West in some ways, but different in many others. But it's very interesting to look at what we understand the Chinese military to be and how they will fight. And another thing that's really bizarre about it, it's that it's almost all entirely theoretical, because the Chinese have not fought a war since the Chinese-Vietnam War of 1979 to 1981, meaning that for about the past 50 years, they have not been in conflict at all, not a single war. And so we don't really know what the Chinese military will do. We don't even really know if they have these kinds of doctrines fleshed out all too much, because we've never seen them in war to see if they were actually a battle-hardened force that would have refined these doctrinal ideas beyond just the drawing board. Not that that's always the determinant, but we are going to be moving into that here really soon. Not entirely, of course, we'll always be covering Ukraine war news until the war ends, but we're also going to be spanning out into covering what's going on in East Asia. We're going to be talking about the Chinese armed forces. We're also going to be talking about the North Korean armed forces. And not only that, the aims and ambitions of China and North Korea. Although we really don't know the aims and ambitions of North Korea long term, we have a really good idea of what China's aims and ambitions are long term because they've been stated multiple times publicly in the Chinese People's Congress, or the CPC. But beyond that, I cannot wait to do that. I've been reading loads about this, and I've been trying to find out every single thing I can, so I will be putting out a video on that not soon. I mean, it'll probably be in the next few weeks, maybe a month from now, but it will be long. Like, if y'all are wondering, how long will that be? It's estimated right now that it's going to be about a 30-minute long video at a minimum, maybe 40 minutes long at its longest. It's going to pretty much be an actual documentary on the topic of what the Chinese military is capable of, what the nation's planning on doing, and what that will mean for Taiwan and the possible invasion of Taiwan that might be coming up either now or well on into the future. And honestly, I still believe it's well on into the future, but we'll have to wait and see. But anyways, with that, I hope that does address that well, and thank you so much once again, BC Skyman, for the massive amount of support and showing that HIMARS/Hwasong flying off into the distance and then exploding spectacularly pair on board. And so with that, we're going to be taking our last question from this segment, and then we're going to be moving back into the frontline news.
All right, and the third and last one is going to go to Radical of an Integer Information Media Activity.
Oh.
Very interesting username, and thank you very much for the $26 support. And they said, what is DARPA doing with the ALXCC, the AI Cyber Challenge? And it seems they are trying to acquire Skynet or a cyber reasoning system of some kind, and they maybe do not have one, ? And LSA.
And thank you so much for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. And I would have to say that that is a very interesting question, Radical of an Integer. Let's see. What is DARPA doing with the ALXCC? It seems they're trying to acquire a Skynet or cyber reasoning system of some kind. So from what I understand, I can't speak about that particular system as a whole, but every armed force, every major power's armed forces, which is really just China and the United States right now, are both trying to implement AI systems into their armed forces. That's also something else that was pointed out a good bit in the U.S. Army's book. Even in late 2021, they were already starting to note and observe that the Chinese were starting to integrate or attempt to integrate artificial intelligence into their armed forces wherever they could to either streamline the amount of personnel needed to conduct a certain kind of a job or to actually help with pattern finding and problem solving for specific parts of the People's Liberation Army. And so it looks as though everyone's trying to get artificial intelligence, but it's not necessarily to be like a Skynet kind of a thing, you know, from Terminator. It's more so to help out the actual human operators in the armed forces. Like, for example, the one time that we've seen an AI system supposedly being used was in an air test over Eglin Air Force Base, where we heard that a single F-35 that had been outfitted with this new AI interlink was able to possibly operate several wingman aircraft with only one pilot in the air, but the one pilot was able to project the power and air force of around an entire air squadron with just one pilot, which massively reduces the amount of pilots that have to be trained for a much larger amount of air power to be put up into the skies. And that is a huge thing, and they're trying to implement that really everywhere they can, wherever that would be possible. The Navy will probably be, the U.S. Navy in particular, will probably be another major force or a major branch that will start to implement AI at a more advanced level, as well as the Space Force, because all of them have a very inherent interest on trying to reduce the amount of personnel that is needed in a single place, because they're able to, like, for example, let's say that a single destroyer has a crew of about 240 sailors. With AI, you can cut that crew down to about 80, maybe 90. Then you're able to take the remainder of those crew members, the 170 of them or so that are now without a ship, and you're able to distribute those guys onto almost two entirely different destroyers, meaning that you need far less service members to field the same kind of firepower that you would in prior years. It's like the new industrial revolution in a way, as far as what AI can do in the future, and how and how much like automation itself, it can greatly reduce the amount of people that are needed for a single job or a single mission in the armed forces, which is so important. And a lot of people will go, "Oh, I don't know about AI." But a lot of people didn't know about automation back in the day. A lot of people were thinking that ships that were going to be heavily automated in their fueling systems were going to break down a large amount. Like, something that y'all may not know, and this is something that's wild, is that battleships of back in the day, and let me pull this up actually, the USS, let's see here, the Texas, because the Texas, I believe, was not oil-fired. Let me make sure that I'm correct on that. Let's see here, installed power, general character, let's see, water tube boilers. So these were water tube boilers. It doesn't say, though, if it was oil or coal-powered, so we'll go to the USS Wyoming instead. So that way I can show something interesting here. So the USS Wyoming, BB-32, that's what we're looking for. I know that this one was coal-fired. So yes, this one was coal-fired. And let me go find the number of crew members that was on board this vessel. So, let's see here. So, the USS Wyoming had 1,063 officers and enlisted personnel on the battleship, and the battleship had a length of 562 feet, so it's about 250 feet shorter than the Titanic, but it had about 1,063 officers and enlisted members on board the battleship. Now, let me try and show y'all a picture of this vessel right here. So here's a picture of the vessel. And what's interesting about this, like, this is a little bit of naval history and how automation has helped out massively, or really just improvements in technology. This vessel at 565 feet long has 1,038 people on it. And if I'm correct, and let me make sure to pull this up. Let me make sure that I get the length of the ship correct at least. So yeah, so the USS Zumwalt, pictured here, has the exact same length as the USS Wyoming, which is kind of crazy, Matthew, because this thing is actually called a destroyer. And this is called a battleship, but the destroyers are getting so big now, they are the length of turn-of-the-century battleships, which is really bizarre. But beyond that,
I'm not even gonna lie, like that Zumwalt right here, like the design of that ship, just looking at it, it's modern, but I'm not sure if it's modern in a good way. The design to me is not appealing looking. I would honestly have the old design, like the old battleship you just showed in the last picture. I would rather have that than this, because something about this doesn't look right.
The Navy doesn't like it either. A lot of people have said that this thing is horrendous. It also has a tendency to roll a lot in heavy seas, which is a big problem, because they're actually scared in really bad sea conditions. The ship could possibly end up capsizing. Like, so it's a little bit of a problem. But beyond that, moving on from that into the complement of the vessel, this ship that is actually a little bit longer than the USS Wyoming, only has 142 crew members for a 600-foot-long vessel, as compared to about 100 years ago, 1,063 people being on the USS Wyoming. Now everyone's going to ask, well, why is that? Why in the world can 146 people do what 1,063 people used to do? Well, the reason why is because most of the people that were on board the USS Wyoming were inside of the engine room. They were having to physically shovel coal from a coal bunker, which is just a giant, like, silo pretty much in the inside of the ship that's holding the coal. They had to take a shovel, turn around, and then throw that coal into a boiler. And they had to do that constantly to keep the ship running. All day, every day, until the ship was decommissioned or converted into an oil-fueled battleship. But beyond that, that's what almost everyone on board this ship was involved in, or they were involved inside of the turrets, having to transport the ammunition from the citadel, which is right below the turret, and into the turret itself, loaded into the guns, and then ready to fire. And all of that, just fueling the ship and manning the guns, took endless amounts of crew members. And as time started to progress and systems started to become more advanced, using either computer systems or automation, the amount of crew members needed to man a ship that was as powerful as the USS Wyoming began to greatly decrease. And that's why we're in the modern day now, where the Zumwalt, the same length and probably has more potency and far more firepower than the Wyoming does, is able to only have a crew of about 146 people, while the USS Wyoming needed a crew of about 1,063. So that's kind of the thing that AI is doing. AI is now going to take this incredibly low number that we've gotten to, automate the ship even further, and require even less crew members to operate it, just on the Navy side of things. For the Air Force, it means that they'll be able to field as many aircraft as they did in the past, but only need a fifth of the pilots that they had to be able to field that kind of air power, which is a huge thing. It decreases the amount of training, it decreases the chance that pilots could die, which is a really big thing, because if a pilot dies, it takes about 10 months on a crash course like we've seen with the Ukrainians, or even a year in some instances, to train a new pilot, and barely. Sometimes it takes years to train a new pilot in the Air Force. And so trying to get pilots, especially in wartime when pilots will constantly be getting killed or shot down and captured, is extremely expensive and is extremely time consuming. And it's the exact same kind of battle that the English were fighting with the 100 Years' War in a way. English longbowmen, which are famous in medieval history, took their entire lives to train. When English men were but boys, they would be training in the churchyards to be able to fire the English longbow. It took a huge amount of skill and a huge amount of training to be able to fire that bow. And if you lost those bowmen in battle, they were permanently lost until a new generation of Englishmen were old enough to be able to join the army on the field and become the next generation of longbowmen. So then the English found out that it was a lot easier to, instead of training all these longbowmen, to just buy crossbows, because they don't require all that much training. The system's kind of automated, really, due to the amount of tension in the bow itself on a crossbow. And for that reason, they could completely forgo all of the lifetime of training that was required to be a longbowman, and you could just pick up a crossbow, pull the rope back that really makes up the firing system, put the bolt in, and then fire it. It didn't take a lot of training, it was a lot easier, and it was a lot cheaper. And that's what AI is doing today, just in a much more advanced and technological form. It's reducing the amount of training, it's reducing the amount of people available, and it's also reducing the fragility that comes with using people in this kind of a system. So while I can't talk about that particular system and what DARPA plans on doing with it, I can tell you in general what AI is planned on doing in the armed forces. It's not going to replace people entirely. The armies of the future are still going to have people in them. There's still going to be infantry, there's still going to be tankers, most likely. There's still going to be people who are in the armed forces. It's just that AI is going to help them to force multiply for the most part with the same amount of people we have now. And so with that, I hope that does address that the best I can, at least from what I know. But thank you so much once again for the support in asking a really good question. And also, a lot of people are really scared about AI. I'm going on and on about this. A lot of people are really scared about AI and what it will do. I'm not that scared about it, you know, and of course some people are going to be like, oh, you're an idiot for not being scared. And maybe, but I'm not that scared about it because it's much like any other kind of technological innovation we've had in the past. It's just like the steam engine. It's just like electricity. It's just like automation and really computer systems that have evolved in the past in general. It's just another step in technological progress. And it's one that we need to embrace and really speed up, if to be entirely honest, because if we don't speed it up, the Chinese certainly are, at least from what I'm reading. And they will be able to surpass the United States in force multiplier abilities just by having AI as a standard part of their armed forces. Even if it's in the background of the periphery at this point, it will give them a larger advantage. And so with that,
I don't think that AI is really anything to be scared of. Like what AI is going to do itself. It's not like it's going to take over like Skynet or anything. I don't think. But I'm more worried about what people are going to do with it. For example, AI is going to let China be able to track people and surveil people probably a lot more effectively than they previously did with other means. So, I think surveillance is probably the most concerning part of it to me, is how it's going to be used in that aspect and also to track people in general. But, I don't think AI is going to get out of hand and go berserk or anything like that. But I'm not an expert on it, so I don't really know.
I don't think AI would go berserk, and also something that people are really concerned about is that AI will break into the nuclear systems around the world and end up nuking people. I don't know if many people know this, but the nuclear system in the United States is operated by analog computers from the 1970s. An AI system would be completely incompatible in a modern form from breaking into those systems. And on top of that, they're closed computer systems. There's no access to the outside, specifically for the reason that they could be hacked into if they did have that ability. So that will not be happening. It will not be happening in Russia, because we make sure, we've deliberately made sure over the past few decades to keep the computer technology, or really any kind of advanced computer technology, in our nuclear arsenal and in some parts of the armed forces down to a bare minimum due to the vulnerability of those systems from electromagnetic pulse attacks, cyber attacks, among many other kinds of attacks, which could completely degrade the system's ability to function or turn the system against us in some way or another. So I wouldn't worry about AI and what it has to do. It's not really going to be doing much. And on top of that, there's still going to be a human operator in charge at all times. So it's not like he's going to go rogue and then kill everyone. That's one thing that I'll have to say 100%. And on top of that, also, we're not going to give fighting AI, wartime AI, morality. It's a completely pointless function to give to that system. The system needs to be able to understand its function and carry out its duties, but it doesn't need to be able to think and then go, I don't really like that, because that's not what we design AI to do. AI right now doesn't have that ability, and if it does, it's already been pre-programmed by people into it to say that it will or won't do something, much like AI in the future will. And so with that, I hope that does address that the best I can, and tone down some fears or tamp it down a little bit, because of course we're not going to give AI the ability to turn on the creator of AI. That would be ridiculous. But with that, I hope that does address that the best I can, and thank you once again for the support, all three of y'all, and helping this channel to keep on running, and thank you to everyone else tonight who's supporting. We will get around to y'all's questions soon, but we got to make sure to get to the rest of the news for y'all, and make sure to let y'all know what's going on before we get to it. And so moving on into Paris, we got to see that the Russians are actually putting propaganda out in front of their embassy. They're telling French soldiers that if they go to Ukraine, they ought to surrender to the Russians. Look at this.
How scary is that, man? They're over here putting propaganda in France. Terrifying.
Dude, this is you know what's even stupider is that this is actually in Moscow. Like, I don't even know who in the world would be reading this. Like, you would think it would be in Paris, and I had to say that as like as a thing for a second, but it's not. This is in Moscow. I'm not even kidding. Because you can actually see right here, this says the Metro 3A. Metro 3A is in Moscow. The buildings are all in Russian. And TASS tried to pass this today as being in Paris. This is not Paris. Parisians don't speak Russian. They speak French. This is Russia. I don't even know why in the world they tried to pass it like that. But anyways, that's the end of that clip. And moving on from that and on into our next one outside of Paris. And now that I got that big reveal out, we're going to just move this on over into Moscow, since that's where it really is. And now we're going to be moving on into our location unknowns. Starting off with our first clip, where we got to see the Ukrainians firing a manpad. This is one of the videos that will not load. Moving on from that and into the next clip, we also got to see a new recruit of the Russian army. They say that
What?
conscription efforts are starting to get a little bit difficult these days, and they're really starting to recruit anyone. And also, Matthew, I find it really funny that they gave him a crink. Like, because it's a really short version of the AK, they're like, here, have a crink. The Russian army is in a pitiful state these days. But moving on from that.
Is that like a joke or something, or is that really a new recruit?
That's really a new recruit. No joke.
I don't even understand that, man. Like, that's like almost a war crime to put that guy out there on the front line like that.
Well, the Russians are not adverse to war crimes, Matthew, at all. I think, like, you're like, man, that's a little immoral. And I'm like, dude, you know what you're talking about? It's like, it's the Russians, man. It's like they're the most immoral people out there. But also, we got to see how the Ukrainians intercepted, detected, and shot down Shahed drones. And we can see them. They've detected the Shahed. It appears on infrared. And we now see them firing at it. We can hear the weed whacker. Dang, man, they're whipping out the big gun. That's good lord.
Damn.
I don't even know what kind of AA gun that is.
Вибух в повітрі.
Oh, I think they got it.
You couldn't miss with that.
No, I don't think you could.
Витрати БК у нас 9, 20 мм. А як він називається, я хіра не знаю.
We now see them. I think they're looking for the debris of the Shahed.
Ти що, 2 барабана випустив, блядь? Нас розстріляють, блядь. У нас 9, блядь.
We see them coming back up to the AA gun. And then we can see that they finally found the debris, showing that they were able to shoot down the Shahed, and it was a successful air interception. Moving on from that, and on into our next clip, we were also able to see Ukraine continuing to build mock-up artillery pieces. These are all mock-up M777s meant to deceive Russian forces into hitting the M777 instead of hitting the actual operational M777s in the area.
НАТО. Сьогодні передаємо 12 макетів М777. Он наш любий Павло прикручує таблички від іменних меценатів. Зараз всі ці макети розбираються.
And they're still building them.
І поїдуть вже на фронт в декілька окремих
They're pretty
артбригад.
convincing looking.
Yeah, I mean, especially in a drone camera, dude, this thing would look like the real deal.
6 ланцетів. Звичайно, є і рекордсмен, який у нас зібрав 12 цих баражуючих боєприпасів. Вартість одного такого макета складає орієнтовно 37 тисяч гривень. Всі вони були закуплені за прямі донати від меценатів, або ви можете доєднатись на сайті реактивної пошти. Збір триває. Це просто перша половина партії, яку ми вже передаємо, щоб не чекати, поки зберуться всі гроші. Доєднатися можна на сайті реактивної пошти, задонатить, можете зібрати самостійно, можете зібрати на день народження і купити хлопцям ось такий макет гармати. Дякую, слава Україні!
And that's the end of the clip, but really cool to see them building decoys in incredibly large amounts. But moving on from that, we also got to see something that I don't really show a lot on stream, but I wanted to show it to y'all today because some people always go, where are the Ukrainian losses? And I've decided that we're going to show it just for this one day, just to get the idea across, at least in vehicular losses, how big of a difference it is in between Ukrainian losses and Russian losses. I'd also like to lay out that this specific loss sheet is made by Andrew Perpetua. Everyone involved in this war is called Andrew for some reason in the West. I have no idea why. But beyond that, every single one that can be confirmed on video and picture evidence as destroyed today is included in this report. So it is everything that has been confirmed by picture and video evidence, a lot like we run this channel. So while this will not be as as I guess you could say, widespread in number as, say, the Ukrainian casualty report will be that we get from Kyiv Independent. This is only showing the ones that we can confirm from OSINT intel. So going off of that, let's look at the Russian losses. They lost what appears to be an entire S-400 battery, destroyed and damaged in the morning, along with a Buke, a couple of Muron-M surveillance systems, some communication equipments, a radar system of an unknown kind, two Costa 2E1 command vehicles, 92 N6A radar from an ATACMS, a Brem recovery vehicle, an excavator, a UGV drone, multiple Mista artillery pieces, a lot of Mista Bs, which are the towed version of the Mista, and then a Mista S, which is the SPG version of the Mista, a D-30, and a howitzer of an unknown kind, multiple main battle tanks, a T-72B3, a T-72B, and a T-72 were abandoned by the Russians today. T-80B VM and two tanks of unknown variant were also destroyed on the front lines. We were also able to see that multiple tracked garden sheds were damaged today and knocked out on the front lines. That's what this loss report, by the way, is calling the turtle tank. We also got to see that another T-80BV was damaged, along with two others. A BMP-2 and a BMP-3 were both abandoned today. We were also able to see that another BMP-2, a BTR-82, and then multiple BMPs were also destroyed. A BMP-2 was damaged, an MTLB was destroyed, a Tornado MLRS was destroyed, a Buzz truck was destroyed, loads of Urals and Kamasas were destroyed today, another load of them were damaged. Then we got to see that a load of Ladas and Loaves were also destroyed today as well by Ukrainian forces, and then a couple of unknown vehicles were also destroyed as well. All of these Russian losses were then met with the following losses from Ukraine that was confirmed on video and picture evidence. Communication equipment, an excavator, one boat, one T-64, another unknown tank, a BMP-1, a Humvee, an M113, a Kamaz, two pickup trucks, a car, a van, an unknown object hit by a Lancet, and then one tree. And so overall, we can see, and also, by the way, the tree is a decoy. Just putting that out there because some people are like, wait a minute, they put that in the loss report? What kind of idiot? It's a decoy. So they lost a decoy. But beyond that, this loss report is the most extensive report that we can get that actually shows us, it shows us what we can confirm as the losses on both sides, at least in vehicular numbers. And you can see here that Russian vehicular losses on any given day are massively Ukrainian vehicular losses on a single given day are massively outweighed by Russian vehicular losses on the same day. This is what the front line generally looks like in confirmed video and picture evidence losses on both sides, just to give you all a real perspective. But with that, we're now going to be moving on from that little bit of news and on to our next bit, where we got to see a picture of the Ukrainian Mi-17 loading up with soldiers. This is actually a training yard, I believe, for the 199th, but we can see them flying in the helicopter and then getting dropped out of the back in an airborne fashion. Pretty cool to see. But moving on from that, we also have a little bit of information about the arrival, speaking of aircraft and air power, of F-16s. It's early June now, and F-16s are nowhere to be seen. Not seen a hair nor hide of them. Nowhere, anywhere. Have y'all seen them? I haven't seen them. And a lot of people are wondering, will they still arrive at all? So a lot of people are saying that they will arrive on time because there is still a little bit of a window left in the original time frame we were given where they can arrive. Some people are saying that they have probably been delayed again, and some people are unsure or saying that they never will arrive. But Matthew, what are people saying about this, and what are you saying about it?
All right, so it looks like 56% said the F-16s will still arrive on time, even though they seem to be a little bit late. 26% said they will get delayed once again, and 13% said unsure, while 5% said they will never arrive. And I think that the F-16s will still arrive. However, we were told that they were going to arrive sometime in late May or early June, and now we've seen about a week ago that someone said that they're going to be delivered around July or so. So it seems like maybe the date is already kind of getting pushed back just a little bit. I'm hoping they're going to arrive by either late this month or maybe early July. But, you know, it seems like they keep pushing it back, and doing it over and over again. And now that the Gripen has also been canceled, the F-16 is Ukraine's only hope for a good fighter jet. So they really need those desperately, and America needs to hurry up with that. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would be entirely honest. I think that they probably will arrive on time. I mean, there's still a little bit of time left, not a lot, but I think they will arrive on time because we we may have some information that they're already there. It's just that they haven't been publicly stated yet. But we don't know if that information is true, and we haven't been able to corroborate it. It's really just hearsay at the moment. But that's what we've been told, is that the F-16 is already in Ukraine. But we don't know for certain, because no official announcement has been made. We'll have to wait and see if that is the case. But nevertheless, I think that they will arrive on time, or they're already there. It's just that they have not been mentioned yet, or publicly stated as being there. So we'll have to see. But moving on from that, and on into our next bit of location unknown news, we also got to see that the Russians apparently captured a quote-unquote French soldier. And the video's not loading. Isn't this great? Man, I don't know what's up with Reddit servers, but sadly, it's just having some issues tonight. So, moving on from that, we also got to see the Russian casualty report over the past 24 hours. And good googly moogly, governor!
Oh my goodness. 12 Bobcats in a day? 1290 troops in a day? What in the world is going on out here? It's like the Ukrainians are slaughtering over there in Kharkiv.
I mean, they really are. 1,290 Russian troops were wounded and killed over the past 24 hours. Absolutely splendiferous. 18 armored personnel carriers were also destroyed, along with 69 supply trucks. Nice. 15 main battle tanks, 65 artillery systems, 27 drones, 2 MLRSs, 3 anti-aircraft warfare systems, and the 12 excavators. And then, of course, we have this guy, whoever the hell he is, and this guy has 54,000 followers. Let's see. You know, Matthew, the description on this man's profile has me feeling that he may be promoting some sort of supplements of vitamins of some sort. You know, it is.
Oh, you don't want optimum health with nourishing food?
No, I want to be shitty. I want to be shittily healthy. I want that. But beyond that, Russian KIA is about 50,000. Source? My ass. Why Russia will fight until Zelensky flees and the AFU surrenders. Why wouldn't they have just won? So can our nutritionist answer the question, why haven't they just won then, you know? But anyways, the losses are incredible. This guy keeps on showing up in the comment sections every day, and I had to observe that now as an actual fact of life. But beyond that, we are now going to be moving on from our Russian casualty report and on into the front lines around the rest of the area. Moving on up into the areas of Tove, we got to see the Ukrainians towing a 152mm artillery piece. Sorry, it's actually the Russians. Correction. And they're dashing through the snow is Russian vehicles burn. Drive a little faster, please. Crying all the way.
Is this a Scooby van?
I think it might be, and they are. Oh, the potholes. Oh, God.
Man, this Scooby van will mean no more once they're finished with those.
There's so many vehicles that have been hit and burning on this road while they're just driving around in the middle of the night. There's like a Disney dark ride out here. They're like, oh, please, burning truck, please.
Like a movie set. Fresh fires everywhere.
I gotta tell you, it looks good. I gotta say, it looks very cinematic. Moving on from that and into our next clip, we get to see a Ukrainian 120mm mortar team firing on the Russians. We will not be seeing that video because it will not load, but still, it was pretty cool if y'all could see it. Moving on from that and into the next clip, we got to see Russian tanks burning. A lot of them. And we got to hear heavy metal music, 1 tank burning, 2 tank burning, ack. But very nice to see. Toasty, in fact. It's quite warm. It keeps people comfortable in the summer months. Because who cannot get hot enough? I think you could get warmer. Moving on from that, and into the next clip, we also get to see a Ukrainian drone attack. Blade. Video does not load. Blade. But still, if you could see it, it was pretty cool. Just that video will not load. So we have to move on. The Western computer system become a lot like Soviet system at this point. TSMC will put us through though. God bless TSMC. Moving on from that, we get to see the 93rd Brigade working on Russian positions near the Chasiv Yar. We're going to be muting clip. He has copyrighted music in it. 93rd Brigade drive tank towards Chasiv Yar, please. Well, you see the artillery exploding around as this I believe it's a Ukrainian tank, is making it up to the front. Another artillery shell hits, and then the tank starts laying down that heat. Douche. Boom, jigga, jigga, boom. Dude, they got some range on that thing, man. They spitting. Boom. Boom, chugga, chugga, boom, chugga, chugga. See another artillery round exploding close to the vehicle. That Russian accent is a bit much already. Well, Blade, what are we supposed to do, Blade? Let me see here. Oh, thank you, Babylonian. Bless you.
Oh, thank you. I gotta tell you what, Enforcer, I don't know what has happened tonight, but I am feeling like I am coming down with something so bad. I'm sitting over here I'm sitting over here just like, oh my God, what's happening? I'm like, something is not right. I'm like, I just realized I'm sniffling as well. I'm like, something is bad wrong.
Oh no. Oh, what in the world could you have gotten? I mean, is it like, maybe it's like a 2-day cold, maybe.
I hope so. I'm telling you what.
I mean, you sound nasally, even on air right now. You sound like your nose is filled with, like, mucus or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Man, I just feel like, bleh.
Dude, I got graphic kind of with that descriptor. Also, really quickly, just a quick point want to make, because I see people in the live chat just saying things, and I understand, but we would like it if people didn't mention other YouTube channels here on our stream. So with some folks we don't really have great relations with, and we don't even really want them to be mentioned in our live chat. So just putting that out there. But still, beyond that, nice clip to see. Good to know the 93rd using their tanks to provide fire support in the area. And moving on from that, we also got to see a Russian turtle tank in the area. This is probably the worst built one. It has a metal Ushanka on the thing. It's not even like a cage. It's just a giant metallic Ushanka. They also put one on an excavator as well, a Euro 4320 excavator. We also got to see it on a UAZ or a Lada. I couldn't really tell. That's a UAZ 469 for show. A Buhanka as well. And then a MTLB and another Buhanka. And then this Brim recovery vehicle being carried by this Russian support truck, and then a BTR. I mean, they are putting some interesting stuff on these vehicles, interesting cop cages. But still, with that, we're now moving on into next bit of news down near Berdichi, where we got to see an electric assault vehicle. And also, really quickly, everyone, I'm going to be speeding this up a little bit because Matthew is not really feeling that hot, so I want to make sure to get him off air because, you know, it would be better for him to rest. But there's
I'm not feeling that bad. I'm just feeling slightly under the weather, not that horrible.
Well, you know, it'd be better for you to get to rest, Matthew. You have to sleep. You have to take care of yourself, Blade. You have to take care of yourself. Don't you all want Matthew to take care of himself? Put in the LSA in the chat if you agree. But moving on from the assault scooter, electric assault scooter. Wait a minute, what type of AK does this guy have? He's got like the most kitted out AK-12 I've ever seen. I'm not going to lie. Like, he's actually got a pretty decent optic on it. That looks like the standard AK-12 stock that they have these days. A suppressor and then some kind of Picatinny rails with some sort of attachments. I can't really tell what kind, but that's still not bad kitted. It's just that neither of them have any body armor or helmets to go with that. So it looks as though they are severely under-equipped. But with that, we're now moving on from that little clip and on to our next one where we got to see Ukrainian Humvee coming under fire in the Donetsk region. And here's the clip. You see the little Humvee rolling on forward. Oh, looks like they're going to have to do a three-point turn here. Oh. You see them trying to get the cover. Ooh. Oh. We now see the Humvee is getting out of there. And the Humvee is trying to speed away as quickly as possible to get out of the drone's range. But I gotta say, it's wild to watch Humvees get hit by FPV drones, and they're just resilient enough that they just get to run away. You don't really see that from Russian vehicles that much. But moving on from that little clip in the Avdiivka area, it's now time for us to move on down in between Pisky and Staromykhailivka, where we got to see that the Russians had the roof brought down on them. And this video will not load, unfortunately, so sadly I won't be able to show you all that. But moving on from that and down into the Volodar area, we did get to see that a Russian tank get blasted. This video will not load. I'm so sorry about that, everyone. It's something that's out of my control. But with that, we're going to be moving on from the Volodar area and on down into the area of Luhivsky, where we got to see a Russian soldier getting hit by an FPV drone. This video is not going to load. So, we are going to summarize the entire southern front by saying there wasn't really a lot of frontline changes, but we did see Ukrainian forces continuing to hit Russian armed forces within the area, and it does appear that the situation is status quo for the most part, not really changing all too much. Meanwhile, up in Kyiv, we were able to get the defense report, the air defense report, and it was not that bad overnight. 2 Iskander-Ks and 2 UAVs were shot down by air defense overnight. Pretty good, pretty nice to see, and we love to see that kind of stuff. And so, moving on from that and on into Kyiv itself, it is now time for us to get to the speech, or more so as I call it, the peach, from President Volodymyr Zelensky. And so, without further ado, here is the speech.
Give me a speech, please. I want a speech today.
Дорогі українці,
Why in the world is it playing so quickly? Why in the world is comedian showing up late? But anyways, let me move this up here and hear his speech.
українки, перш за все, ставка була детальна розмова з військовими, урядом, керівниками спеціальних служб щодо кількох питань. Перше, були доповіді головкома Сирського та начальника Генштабу Баргилевича по ситуації на фронті. Основні напрямки. Найбільше боїв та найтяжчі атаки на Донеччині. Фактично, основний напрямок російських ударів. Звичайно, ситуацію на півдні, на Харківщині, в районах прикордоння Сумської та Чернігівської областей ми теж сьогодні розглянули. Я вдячний кожному підрозділу, кожному командиру та солдату, завдяки яким вдалося стабілізувати Харківський напрямок. Робимо все, що потрібно, крок за кроком, щоб Росія бачила, нам є чим відповідати на будь-яку спробу розширити війну та збільшити тиск на Україну. І працюємо з нашими партнерами, щоб таких можливостей стало ще більше, щоб вони були більш далекобійні. Друге. Доповідь урядовців щодо енергетики та можливостей захисту та відновлення. Кожен день і на всіх рівнях цьому має бути приділена не просто максимальна, а тотальна увага усіх відповідальних посадовців. Також сьогодні міністр оборони та Мінстратегпром дали звіти по нашому виробництву та закупівлі дронів. Це те, в чому постійно має відчуватись нарощування обсягів. На цій війні і саме нашими воїнами було доведено, що дрони здатні давати перевагу і повертати ініціативу. У час, коли ми очікували постачання артилерії від наших партнерів, FPV-дрони фактично вберегли фронт. Наші далекобійні дрони довели, що Україна здатна обмежувати внутрішню силу держави-терориста. Маємо це продовжувати. Будемо продовжувати. Я дякую кожному і кожній, хто працює заради саме цієї української сили, щоб у наших воїнів на фронті були необхідні дрони, і щоб наші сили оборони та безпеки України змінювали ситуацію і надалі, застосовуючи дрони. І це питання персональної відповідальності керівників. І третє. Дав сьогодні кілька доручень щодо підготовки наступних засідань Ставки та наступних рішень. Ми бачимо загрози, які є. Держава має бути готовою до відповідного реагування. Зараз лише початок червня, а вже саме такі тижні, які визначатимуть і все літо, і багато в чому цей рік. Це стосується саміту миру і нашої консолідації світу заради України. Це стосується і Європи, наших відносин з Євросоюзом. Це стосується, звичайно, і наших позицій на фронті, а також внутрішнього виробництва. По кожному з цих напрямків робимо все, щоб результати були у України. Я вдячний усім, хто допомагає, вдячний кожному і кожній, хто робить все, щоб ця війна завершилась, та завершилась справедливо для України. Слава Україні!
And
Героям слава.
And with that, that is the end of the speech from President Volodymyr Zelensky. And that moves us on into the second segment of this stream, where we get to talk to all of y'all. It's one of the funnest segments. It is absolutely wild. It's absolutely ham. It's crazy. Absolutely insane from start to finish. But something that's even crazier, something that is actually insane, is the North Koreans threatening to go to war with South Korea if the loudspeakers are turned on. In fact, the threat alone has stopped the endless flow of sewage balloons into South Korea. And a lot of people have been wondering, is North Korea truly that scared of Taylor Swift? And Matthew, what are people saying about that? And what are you thinking about it?
All right. So after South Korea set up the mega speakers on the border of North Korea, and they once again raised them all up in preparation to blast some K-pop, the trash balloons suddenly came to an end. And North Korea's like, whoa, 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 Jack, we're going to stop the trash balloons. So 59% said North Korea is very scared of Taylor Swift. 28% said North Korea can't let the truth be heard. And 6% said North Korea is simply bluffing. And I must admit that if the loudspeakers were pointed at me and that T Swift was about to come on, I might give up and surrender as well. But that's just me. Seriously speaking, I don't think they're about to play any K-pop or Taylor Swift or anything. They were about to play something probably that was propaganda related to the West, saying that North Korea is a communist country, it's no good, it sucks. But honestly, I don't think the North Koreans need to be reminded of that. They kind of know it sucks. They're starving right now. So I don't know. North Korea really just backed out suddenly. Once they saw the speakers go up, they're like, oh, don't worry, no more trash balloons, no more sewage. So honestly, I don't even know really. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would have to say the North Koreans are truly scared of Taylor Swift. Do y'all know how virulent and mad Swifties are? Like, they are they are some of the most violent people I've seen out there recently. Like, I would say that they're more violent than most political-minded people. It's something quite scary. And I'd have to say that if those loudspeakers got turned on and the North Koreans said something vehemently about Taylor Swift, I have a feeling that the Swifties would end up pouring across the North Korean border and would probably end the regime overnight. So for that reason alone, they stopped sending the sewage balloons, because this will end up being a lose-lose for them if the music ends up playing, because they hate to face the music. And not only that, the North Korean people are not just hungry for food, they're hungry for sick beats. And if they get those sick beats, it might just be over. I mean, it really may be. And so I would have to go with the opinion of they're scared of Taylor Swift. I would have to go with the large majority of y'all who said that. And also, I think, Matthew, I think it would be funny if the Chinese over here in Kangdao ended up playing some sick Chinese tunes towards North Korea. You know, like some of that.
What's up, Beijing?
What's up, Beijing? If they started playing some of that, that would be funny, man. I think that'd be great. And also, another thing that's really interesting, folks, about North Korea is that they have this fairly sizable city here called Kaesong. And I'm really interested, folks. What in the world is in Kaesong? It looks like slums to me. Like, the way this is organized. My God, man, you look at the density in this. This is like the Kowloon walled city up in this place.
This is North Korea?
This is North Korea.
Oh, damn. They got people living on top of each other.
Dang, dude. And look, we got the torture camp right here. I'm just kidding. It's probably like a school or industrial yard or something. But, and then, Matthew, of course, they have the monument to Kim Il-sung. The best part of the town. Like, it's the only part that looks like it's upkept. Beyond that, the rest of it looks like a mega slum. Oh, wait a minute, look.
I really resonate with that middle name he's got, Kim Il. I can relate with the ill part.
Man, Matthew is the illest. But beyond that, look at the picture of this thing. Dude, like, they actually upkeep this very well. I mean, like, this has a lot of effort put into it, but the rest of the city, if we can even see it, does not look like that at all. Like, I wish we could actually drop down and take a look at this, because, like, this area, what are these buildings, really? Like, I have no clue. I don't know. They have a department store. And also, why in the world do the roofs on every single building in Korea look like they've been gnawed through by rats and then set on fire afterwards? They always look the worst. It's like they don't even tar the roofs or anything like that. They just build the building and then they just let them rot.
Oh my god, yeah. And also, by the way, I just saw in the live chat the observer said Kim mentally ill song.
Oh dang!
My goodness, man, I was laughing my head off at that while you were showing those roofs. They probably chewed through the roofs because they're starving, though.
Probably so. And then we have a restaurant called Reunification. What?
Oh yeah, that's really reunified right there. They're gonna reunify with some food.
What the hell is that, dude? That's dog food chopped up into pieces. That ain't food. Huh?
Pate.
Oh, I thought you said that's a, and I thought your mic cut out. I was like, what? But let's look at this. So this is one of those restaurants for Western tourists. And so, let's see. Okay, so here is our wide assortment of food. We have one boiled egg, dog food, some pieces of what looks like a yam, some onions, apricots, maybe, some rice. Like, that might actually be an okay helping of rice a little bit. Overall, I'll be honest with y'all, this isn't really looking like that filling of a meal. Like this looks like it would be kind of a little meh. And then we got this guy down here. I heard that he's saying, I'm not being tortured, and he's, like, blinking Morse code saying, help me, please. But I don't know about
that
this.
That guy looks like he's like, I've never seen a person look like that. Is that guy even real? Like, he looks like a wax figure.
You know what he looks like? He looks like the bad guy from that North Korean movie, like the American. Let me go see North Korean.
It's like Madame Tussauds, like episode 5.
Hang on, North Korean action movie. List of North Korean films. Let me go find Our Construction, My Home Village, Blast Furnace. Come on, come on. It's got to be a little bit later. Like, I know it's got to be in here somewhere. Hang on, y'all. Hang on, I got to find this. Order number 27. I think, yes, this is it. Okay, so. Oh, by the way, I forgot to mention this while I'm looking for this movie, because this particular movie was actually not that bad. Like, it was propaganda, of course, but the action in it was legit. Like, you could actually tell people were getting hurt. But beyond that, this is the movie I'm talking about, Order number 27, and you wouldn't believe who was in the cast. Kim Jong-un.
Kim Jong-un? He was in the movie?
He was in the movie, and this movie was made in 1986. Let me pull this up for y'all. When was Kim Jong-un born? Kim Jong-un was born in 1984, meaning that if he was in this movie as Chol-yu, he would have been 2 years old. Do y'all believe that? I don't believe that. But he is listed in the credits, supposedly.
He probably produced the movie, you know, with his skills. Like, he was born on Mount Pektu, so if he can do that, he can produce the movie at 2 years old.
Dude, just like Kim Il-sung, man. Just like Kim Il-sung. Oh, long live the People's Party. But anyways, let's see. Let me go pull up Order number 27. I've got to find y'all a picture of the American bad guy in the movie, because he looked just like that dude that Matthew was like, what the hell? And like, he was like, no one's ever looked like that. He looks like Madame Tussauds figure. He really looks like the American bad guy out of the movie. Let me see if I can find him. Oh, right here. Oh my goodness. This is such a crappy picture, but it's like the only one I could find. He looks like this guy right here.
Oh, what the hell? He really does. Like, this is out that movie you're just looking at?
Yeah, this is out of the movie Order number 27.
That's a real original name for a movie, too. That's great.
Dude, I'm not kidding, though, man. Order number 27 had some action scenes in it. Let me go see if they have one on YouTube, because it was actually, like I'm not gonna lie, man. If you're into action movies, Order number 27 might be, like, an A-tier movie just for the action alone. Not, like, the propaganda or anything. But let me see here if I can just get... Okay, so this is a clip of it. Hang on, let me get it to the right spot though, where they actually do like the choreographed crap. Okay. So let me see here. The audio is pretty bad. I'm gonna mute that for a second so that way I can show this to y'all a lot better. So, well, let me get to the part. Okay. Okay, so wait a minute. No way. Okay, hang on. I got to get to the freaking part where they end up. Okay, here we go. Here's an action scene from the movie. Like, and by the way, just letting y'all know, North Korea at this point in history has absolutely no concept of CGI, and even in the West, CGI was in its very early infancy, hardly even usable at this point. So just keep that in mind when y'all watch this, that there's absolutely no CGI involved in this. It's all real stunts or people actually getting hurt. So here's the clip. Audio sucks. I'm not gonna lie, it's like a North Korean Jackie Chan movie. Like, it's like, what the hell? Like, and the whole movie is like this, dude. Like, they have this insane firefight later on in the movie. That, like, they're using nothing but World War II weapons. But let me get over here. Like, let me show you the actual like in boss fight in the movie. Like, look at this. Bro, they're just throwing forks at each other.
I threw a fork in his face. He said, "Oh." Oh my god, this audio is so bad.
Bro, like, no, I'm not even kidding, dude. This stuff is crazy. Like, people are getting maimed. Like that. Like, how the hell do you do that without injuring these actors? Like, because this isn't CGI, and they don't have any rope works here, because they're not, like, they're not able, at this time in history, even, like, probably even now they're not able to do this, to put this guy on a rope and, like, lift him up where he could do that, and then edit out the rope later that's holding him up, or the harness. This guy actually had to jump on these dudes' chests and literally run across them. Look at this. Okay, you gotta
I'm just trying to get over the fact that the guy has got a fork in his face, and instead of going, "Oh my god," he went, "Oh."
Dude, he went, "Oh." He was like, "Oh, man." Dude, let's watch that again. Oh my god. Dude, I cannot believe that. Like, and then they moved it from his. Did you see that though? They hit him like dead center of the eyes with this chopstick or whatever, and then it's in his neck in the next shot, like an immediate continuity error right here. Look. Bop. Bop, bam, like right in between the eyes. And then here in this clip, it's in his neck.
It is.
Okay, so moving on from that, let me see if I can get to like the big G.I. Joe battle thing with the bad guy. Oh, here we go. I think this is it. Dang, man, it's hard to find the clips because it's just, and the sounds are terrible. Like, everything about this movie is just pretty bad. But then they get into like a little like choreographed battle. Like, look at this crap, dude. Like, this guy is like Spider-Man. Look at him. Bam! And then he's just like, you gotta admit, that is a bit of skill right there to do something like that.
Well, they're acting because their life depends on it, man. They're like, they got guns probably pointed at them from behind the camera.
Dude, this guy.
Also, someone said, "Is this one of these movies that was being directed by the kidnap director?" When was this movie made again?
Yeah, this movie was made in 1986, and I believe it was made by a director that was kidnapped, if I'm correct. So, yes.
Yeah, they went and had to kidnap a whole director because they didn't even have the skills to make a movie. So they were like, let's just go kidnap one from somewhere. And they did. They brought him back and forced him to make movies.
Let's see here. The main theme composed by, called Motherland Will Forever, set during the Korean War, sent across the DMZ, committing... oh yeah, by the way, they're sent to go fight the Americans, which are committing atrocities. That's the premise of the movie. And so let's see here. There's also a spy. Let's see. Okay, so sadly they don't say anything about the kidnapped director of the movie in the Wikipedia, but there was a kidnapped director. But another thing that was really interesting about this movie is that it was one of the few that actually made it out of North Korea and was actually, I believe, made for production in China, which is a very interesting thing about it. And that's really the only reason we have access to it. Because if I go back over here really quickly, you can see that we know of a lot of movies but we don't have anything on them. Like, there's nothing on them because we just know of their name and we know what they're kind of about. But beyond that, we have no actual proof or evidence of anything else to even write about most of them. Very few of them are like that. And let me see here. Do they make any modern movies? Like, because I don't know about modern North Korean movies. So they have a
They
day
make
and
those
a
modern
night.
TV shows, you know, that squirrel and that other thing, like that animated cartoon.
Oh, yeah, they do that, don't they?
Yeah, it's a bunch of like TV series that like going on that they're making.
Man, also, I like this, man. Look at this. Received the Special Jury Award at the 17th PIFF. Literally, they only put on like one show or one movie, maybe a year, maybe every few years. So it's like, is there really any competition for the award, or is that like the only shoe-in for the award that they're giving out? But let's see here. The Day the Mountain Cried.
The day that Kim Jong Un was born on it.
The Day LeBron Cried. That's the movie. And then we got the story. What is this movie about? A North Korean drama film based on the life of Jang Jong-hwa, the child mother who adopted several orphans at a young age. Directed by Ri Yun-ho, the film won the top prize at the 2016 Pyongyang Film Festival. Not like it had any competition. Became the first North Korean film to be screened publicly in South Korea when it was presented at the Bucheon International Fantastic Film Festival. And then the premise is the shortest one I've ever seen. 18-year-old Ri Jong-ae takes care of a family of orphan children. The eldest of the siblings, Un Jong, is unreceptive to the help. That's it. No other plot development. It's just that. And then you have 3 cast members. And that's it. so to hell with your plot, to hell with your cast, 3 cast members, 1 sentence plot, go. And that's it. Let's see here. Let's see.
I already see the comments in the chat though. I can't even repeat it.
Let's see. So bad that even the mountains cry. Oh my god. Oh man. Oh no, oh no. Oh no.
Oh no.
I never even realized it. Oh no. Yeah, that ain't flying, is it? Like that highlighted name, that ain't flying, is it? But anyways, with that, I hope we kind of went down a kind of an interesting rabbit hole with the North Koreans for a minute, talking about that poll. But oh no, dude, I looked over at the chat and the first thing I saw was how and who? It's just like no, it's just like no, this is terrible. We're never reading North Korean names again on air ever. Oh, by the way,
they said ho ho ho, but it wasn't Santa.
Oh no, it was someone other than Santa, and they have an island. But beyond that, we also have the Kaesong Social Security Bureau. So that way I can report all y'all in the chat who are making these comments. But anyways, with that, I hope we were able to go down a very interesting rabbit hole and share it with all of y'all. But with that, it is now time for us to move on and on. What the hell is a Chilyung gun? What is this? I want to know. Historical landmark. Well, they don't have any pictures of it, so I'm doubting it. The tomb of King Wangon. Oh wow, it's like actually like preserved and everything. Look at that. It's like a mound. It's like dude, it's like one of those English mounds. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's very, very green.
Well, it is grass. Like the grass
Yes.
is always greener in North Korea, Matthew. Remember that. Oh, look at this. We got our Taekwondo artist and and they're just hanging out there. The site was inscribed on the World Heritage List as the 37th session of the World Heritage Committee in June. Juche 102. Oh, damn, dude, there it is. That's what I was talking about. Remember I said the North Koreans have their own year and date system? There it is. Juche 102. It is the year 102 when it was 2013 for the rest of the world.
That's crazy. The year 102. So in their like belief system of Juche, they believe that the world's only 102 years old or something.
No. It's like well, you know, the world isn't 24 years old, Matthew. That's when Jesus was born. So it was when
What was the start date?
I don't think there is one. I think it just goes back indefinitely into like millions and billions of years. But anyways, This
Well, I mean, it had to go back to 0. If it's 102, it had to start from 0. That's logical.
well, it's the time after Kim Il Sung. That's when the calendar. That's how the calendar works. So when Kim Il Sung was born, that is like day 1 of year 1 of the Juche calendar, and then it works from there. And so it is year 102 in 2013. Man, wouldn't you love to be in North Korea?
It all revolves around Kim and the ill gang.
Man, they the illest for real. I mean, like, they are the illest. Man, you really are ill. But anyways, damn, bro, I'm gonna have to walk out of here and walk right by you to get on upstairs. But anyways, with that, I hope that does address that fairly well and go down a cool rabbit hole. But with that, in the year of our great Kim, 100 and like something, it would be like 117 right now. It's time for us to move on into them questions. And we got so many of them. And so, Matthew, what do we got?
All right, so our first one here is going to go to Babylonian, who puts in a $70 donation. And thank you very much, Babylonian, for that generous support. $70, the biggest one of the night. Babylonian says, great work, guys. I'm glad you checked out Andrew Perpetual's work that I recommended around a month back in another super chat. And I thought it was a good fit, as it's what can be found. And love you guys, and keep up the great work, and cheers.
And thank you so much, Babylonian. And of course, I eventually had to include it because I've been looking at it and I'd known about that before you even threw in that super chat, Babylonian, a month ago. It's just that usually we don't really like to show Ukrainian losses too much on the channel. But every once in a while, and recently over the past week, I've been feeling like it's kind of important to show Ukrainian losses a little bit because a lot of people don't really have a bearing or a context, especially if they only watch this channel, to know if the Ukrainians take any losses at all. And I do want to make it clear that they do take losses. It's just that it's not as close as people think, and the Russians are taking far greater losses than the Ukrainians on any given day. And so I thank you so much once again for support, Babylonian, and helping this channel to keep on running, and also sharing that with me so that way I eventually showed it on air. But it is a very good source of information. I usually cross-reference it daily to see what the kill-to-death ratio vehicular-wise is for the Ukrainians and the Russians. And I got to thank you so much once again for helping to support this channel and helping it to be possible so that way we can continue to be out here covering this news and doing everything we do and continuing to support amazing nonprofits around the world. Because I don't know if y'all know this, but we raised nearly $5 grand this past Sunday for Nova Ukraine. I mean, it was truly incredible. It was amazing. And folks like you who support this channel help us to make it possible for the Lee Spring Army to have a home and keep doing incredible things like that. And so with that, I hope that does address that the best I can. And with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you once again.
All right. And our next one here is going to go to Tez Sorgan, and he put in a $31 donation. And a huge shout out to Tez for that support. And thank you very much for helping to keep our channel running. And with that, I'm trying to see here if there was a comment. I don't think there was, but for some reason, it's not showing up in the spreadsheet from YouTube. That is very weird. But I think that was his first ever super chat, by the way. So a huge shout out to Tez for the support. And Enforcer, what say you?
And I got to thank you so much for the support, Tez, and helping this channel to keep running. It is folks like you who help to make this thing possible and help us to keep this thing as a reality. And I thank you greatly. I thank you greatly for the support and making this thing possible. And so with that, thank you so much once again for your first support ever. And thank you once again for helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we're on to the next one. And thank you so much once again.
Indeed. And our next one is going to go to East Malibu, who puts in a $20 donation. Thank you very much, East Malibu, for that support as well. He said, what is you onion on Ukraine? I think he meant to say, what is your opinion on Ukraine targeting with their own weapons rich Duma neighborhoods to push Putin out?
Oh, I would not recommend it. Because just because people are rich doesn't mean they're not human. They are still civilians. And so striking rich people's houses and possibly killing them, I would say that's not really a good look. That may as well be like killing a poor civilian. It's the same thing to me. So I would say that's not really that good of a look. And also, I don't like the idea of targeting specific groups of people in Russia based off of their class, because that really may as well be the same thing as targeting by their race or by any other metric in trying to single them out for that. And so I would say that's not really a good thing, and I wouldn't like the idea of hitting anything that could be deemed a civilian target, even if it is a rich person's house. And also, I don't know why I said even if it is a rich person's house, like there's some kind of a caveat to that. I'm generally not a fan of hitting civilian targets in general, so I would have to say not really a fan of that. But still, thank you so much once again for the support and helping this channel to keep on running, because it is folks like you who help to make this thing possible. And with that, we are on to the next one. But thank you so much once again.
All right, and the next one goes to JD Macco 23, who also put in a $20 donation. And a huge shout out to JD Macco for that support as well, and for always being a longtime viewer and enforcer. What say you?
And I gotta thank you so much, JD Macco, for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. You didn't throw in a comment, but the support does say a lot. And it helps us to say a lot on air as well. And I gotta thank you so much for that. Thank you for helping us to keep this thing running. It means a lot to us. I know it means a lot to y'all. And if it wasn't for folks like you who supported this channel, we wouldn't be able to make this thing a reality. And so with that, thank you so much once again. I hope that does address that well. And with that, on to the next one. Thank you once again, JD Macco, for being a real G.
Yes, indeed. And our next one is going to go to Jay Bagwell, another channel legend. He put in a $10 donation, and a huge shout out to you, Jay, and hope you're doing well. He said, the Korean situation reminded me of the U.S.-Panama War, where we blasted rock music at the Panamanian president until he surrendered, and Matt, check the DMs. And Jay Bagwell was sliding into those Twitter DMs. Let's see what he's got over here. And let's see. He put in an article here, which actually shows the situation where the Panamanian president was run out because the U.S. brought in some Humvees with some loudspeakers on top of them and blasted them with rock music, the American rock music, that is. And, you know, honestly, I'm not really shocked by that because even though I was kind of joking about the Taylor Swift thing, it's been known, like I've heard in the past, one of our relatives who went through pilot training said that part of the training involved being put into a box. If you were ever captured, it was like hypothetical capture scenarios, and they blasted loud music at it, and they had to endure it. And that was part of the training to withstand the torture, and it was simply loud rock music being blasted at you in a box. So it's not too far-fetched to think that that music, loud enough and also for a long enough time, could be considered a weapon, especially if you put on some Taylor Swift. But Enforcer, what say you?
Man, I say screw that. Put on some Yoko Ono. Put on that you know, kind of crap. I mean, get them fried, man. I'm saying like I need them mentally damaged from this. We need to play Yoko Ono. Like there ain't no rock up in here. Yoko Ono only. I mean, we are going to have Yoko Ono put on the Geneva Convention. Like by the time we're done. I'm just kidding. But beyond that, thank you for sharing that, Jay Bagwell, because that is true with the whole like speaker system thing. And also, it's another thing that we did. I think the reason why we did that in Operation Just Cause was because we did that in Vietnam as a side. I forgot what it was called. But it was where we would play the sound. Let me see if I can go find the audio.
It was the spooky like noises in the forest. They were trying to get the people to think the spirits were coming to haunt them in that area.
Yeah, let me see if I can go find it. Here we go. Operation Wandering Soul, which was where I think we kind of used this idea for the first time in large form. Of course, I'm sure we experimented with it a little bit before this even. But Operation Wandering Soul was a PSYOP operation conducted by the Army in Vietnam, where we would play ghoulish noises, like that's the best way I can explain it, that were heavily tied into Vietnamese folklore and religion, where they were hoping that many of the NVA and the Viet Cong would believe that the sounds were the spirits of their ancestors, condemning them for what they were doing, and that they would crawl out of the holes that made up the Ho Chi Minh Trail, and they would end up pretty much just surrendering to the Americans, and then also trying to get in on those Chu Hoi benefits. But anyways, let me play a little bit of that for y'all, because it is something interesting. So this is the audio, by the way. This is, oh, by the way, this is ghost tape number 10. Just want to make that clear. There was like 9 others. This is the 10th one. So let's see here. When's it going to play?
I don't hear nothing, man. This is scary.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, where the Vietnamese believe that their unburied dead soul will wander forever in pain and suffering, making sure to torture them good. So, here we go. Do I be busting it down to this? That's like...
Hitting the gritty out there in the forest.
Dude, the cats be dancing to this. So they just
I'm
played.
gonna lay odds this didn't work.
You wouldn't believe it. It worked a little bit.
Oh, for real?
No
That's the most
joke.
garbage sounding like soundtrack I've ever heard. Just
Man.
like, you'd have to be pretty dumb to like fall for that one.
Dude, that sounds like Hot Dog Man off air. Ooh. It's like, wait, that's
Sounds like
scary.
I'm on air too.
Yeah, better yet, it just sounds like I'm on air. But listen to it a little bit more because you really feel the passion coming out about it 20 more seconds in. Dude, look at that. Spooky,
it's
right?
a ghost.
Like, Zoink Scoop. I think the ghosts are scared of us. Run, Raggy, surrender. But beyond that, I don't know. Like, I can't believe that it worked. I mean, it actually worked a little bit. Like, it didn't work a lot, by the way. Like, it was generally considered a failure. But some members of the NVA and the Viet Cong actually ended up surrendering because of it. Like, they just ended up handing themselves over. So a little weird. But I think that's why they did that, Jay, in Panama, was because they're like, well, it worked there, so why not just put rock up and see what happens? And, you know, and I believe that makes rock a tool of war, like a tool in the toolkit. But beyond that, thank you so much for sharing that, Jay, that interesting story. And that is really cool to think that, well, not really cool, but it's really interesting, I guess, that sound like that can be used as a weapon, a psychological weapon. And so with that, thank you so much once again for support. I hope that does address that very well. And also, Matthew, maybe we can do that to Hot Dog guys, people, although he has like no one left. Whenever they whenever they do anything again, go, woo, you know, something like that, and see if they give up.
Whoa! Oh man!
No, man, sit there.
Oh, man. I want them to be here for me.
There's something like that.
Whoa! Jeez.
Better yet, dude, hit that.
Oh, man. My audience sucks. I hate my own audience.
Or something like that, and see how many people turn against him again. But
Man,
anyway,
you're scaring me off right now. I'm telling you, I don't want to listen no more.
oh. But anyways, with that, I hope that does address that well. And thank you so much once again for support, Jay Bagwell, and sharing that cool fact with us. And I hope I was able to add on to it and also talk about it a little bit. And so with that, thank you so much once again. I hope that does address it well. And thank you for being a legend and an old guard, by the way. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and our next one goes to Mark Hickman, who puts in a $10 donation, and thank you very much, Mark, for that support. He said, hi, guys, and take a question from the chat.
Hello there. How do you do? And thank you for the support. And we will make sure to take a question from the chat. But thank you once again for helping this channel to keep on running and supporting us through and through to help to make this thing possible. And so with that, we're on to the next one.
And this live chat question is going to go to Tez, who says, do you think that Australia is doing enough to support Ukrainian?
I think they're doing what they want. I don't think that's too much or too little. I think they're doing everything that they feasibly can, because much like it costs us a lot of money to ship anything to Australia, it costs a lot of money to ship anything out of Australia, because they're so isolated geographically compared to most of the world. So I think they're doing everything they can without burying themselves in just shipping costs alone of getting things from Australia to Europe. So with that, I hope that does address that well, at least in my opinion. And thank you so much once again for sponsoring that live chat and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to LSA Master Sergeant Figment, who puts it in a 10. And thank you very much, Sarge, Master Sarge, for that support. He said, hey guys, and if U.S. troops are being deployed in mass to Europe, what will Russian response look like? And also in response to Belarus getting nukes, we should give Germany nukes, and that would really scare Russia.
Oh, I wouldn't give anyone nukes. While the Russians may be stupid in giving Belarus nukes, I do not believe at all in nuclear proliferation. I believe that we're on a very good path, making sure that nuclear weapons are limited to as few countries as possible, and those stockpiles end up being as small as we can make them. Of course, they'll never go away, but we can still try and make them smaller. But beyond that, I don't really know what the Russian response would be, because the typical response to a buildup of U.S. forces in Europe would be an equal Russian buildup of forces on the Russian and Belarusian side to counter that. Problem is that most of their combat troops are currently involved in the war in Ukraine. So there really isn't a lot for them to move to the border to do a par-on-par response with us if we were to build up our forces. So at the moment, I would have to say I don't really know what they could do in response, but that would be the prototypical response. As far as the Belarusians now having access to nuclear weapons, it doesn't really appear that anyone's been that concerned about it or that concerned about making it a big situation. But I would be, if I was the president, because this is just not a optimal thing. It's nuclear proliferation. Weapons of mass destruction are now in the hands of another country. And I believe that we should start to have a major response to that, and we should demand that the Russians take control of those nuclear weapons and then either keep them in Russian control in Belarus or move them out of Belarus entirely. That's what I would say. And so with that...
And also, LSA Master Sergeant said, I meant as a joke about Germany.
I thought you meant it seriously. I'm so sorry, LSA Sergeant Bigman, because we can't read sarcasm or anything in the chat. So we did know. So sorry about that. I didn't know it was a prank, bro. It was a prank. But beyond that, that's a good one. That's like, now that I know it's a joke, that's a good one. Because I thought it was serious. I was like, no, we shouldn't do that. But beyond that, thank you so much once again for support, LSA Sergeant Figment, and helping this channel to keep on running. Because it is folks like you who helped make this thing possible. And sorry about that misunderstanding. Did not mean to take that seriously when I was meant as a joke. But still, with that, I hope that does address that well. Thank you so much once again. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next one is going to go to Andy L, who puts in a $20 donation. And thank you very much, Andy L, as always, for that support. He said, please take a live chat question, and we shall, in honor of Andy L's donation and super chat. And this one is going to go to Adam McLean, who says, Russia's military has been neutered by Ukraine, and can China or anyone really see them as an ally anymore?
Yes, it doesn't really matter that the Russians have an incredibly strong military, especially for the Chinese. If we're talking about the Chinese perspective, they would not care. In fact, they would actually like it if the Russians had a smaller military. That means that the Russians are more vulnerable to possible conventional attacks from other countries, and that means that they'll require protection. And that protection is something that the Chinese would be more than happy to provide, given that they get some benefits in return. And so going off of that, I would certainly say the Chinese will like it if the Russians are weakened. That will draw the Russians even deeper into a Chinese sphere and allow them to have an unlimited stream to raw materials such as crude oil, timber, steel, and other kinds of major important construction materials that the Chinese need, or really just materials to keep their economy and their nation running on a daily basis. So going off of that, I think that they certainly would end up being a big ally to the Chinese. And not only that, imagine the national rejuvenation that would happen with that. I mean, not only are the Chinese building a big sphere in the Indian Ocean area, but they even have the Russians, baby, come back.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, we're back. Yeah,
Oh,
baby.
yeah. Oh, we're back.
We're back, baby. And so with that, I hope that does address that live chat fairly well. And thank you so much once again, Andy L, for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. Because it is folks like you who helped make this thing possible. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and our next one is going to go to Tez Sorgan once again, who puts in a $15 donation. And thank you very much, Tez, for the support once again. They said, hi, Enforcers, and sorry, I made my first donation earlier, and I just wanted to ask if you think that Australia is doing enough to support Ukraine, and just remember, we're a small country. And Tez, you actually put that in a live chat as well. We just answered a second ago, just out of randomness. So, Enforcer, what say you?
And I hope we were able to answer that just a moment ago fairly well, but make sure to recap it. I think Australia is doing plenty. They are on the other side of the world, to be quite honest, and in a strategic aspect, Ukraine is not really their problem, unlike it would be for Europe and the United States and Canada. So I don't really think that Australia owes them anything, so anything beyond nothing is big support to me coming from the Australians. So I'd say that they're doing more than enough. They're doing plenty for Ukraine, and I'd have to say that's great on Australia. And so with that, I hope that does address that well, Tez, and thank you so much once again for support and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one. Thank you so much once again for the support.
Yes, indeed. And our next super chat is going to go to Wyatt Logan, who puts in a $10 donation. And thank you very much, Wyatt, as well. He said, hello, LSA and Enforcers. Have a wonderful night and a great day tomorrow.
And thank you, Wyatt Logan. And you have a wonderful day and a great day tomorrow. I hope you take care. I hope you sleep well. I hope you get up and you have a wonderful day tomorrow. And I thank you once again for support and enjoying this channel and wanting us to have a good day and a great night. And I'm going to have a great night's sleep. And so with that, thank you so much once again. I hope that does address that well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And we have a $10 super chat from WCATFN, which stands for Who Cares About the Effing Name? And they put in that 10. Excuse me, I'm about to sneeze. But they said, I received my peanut containing a classy black LSA mug. Very happy. And I also want a pint-sized royal/cobalt blue one. And can you make that happen?
And, you know, I wonder if we can make that happen. That's a question that would go to Matthew right there. But I'm happy to hear that you got... I'm happy to hear that you got the mug, and it's wonderful to know that you like it. But we will see about trying to come out with more mugs in the future of different designs and types. It's just that we have to go through the design process first. But we may put that on the list. And Matthew, what do you think about that?
So we could make that happen. It would probably be honestly further down the line, just because we just ran the all blacked out mugs. But it's certainly an option, so we will keep that on the drawing board. I will say for next month, or not really next month, but more like the next merch run, we're going to have something that's already pre-selected. That if you're on Patreon, you've already probably seen it. I'll let y'all go back and take a peek if you want to take a look at it. But it's already decided what's going to be for next month, and I think you're going to be very happy with it. But the mugs will probably hold off on. Also, we do have the flags coming back in rotation as well. Just the flags. I don't think they're going to be signed this time. It's probably just the flags without the signature. But they'll be coming back at some point in the next few months as well. So we'll add those to the suggestions list.
Actually, in the future, I'm kind of debating this right now. Because a lot of y'all want me to autograph things. Like, we've actually been getting a good amount of messages in the background of people wanting me to autograph patches. Sadly, I can't do that because if I did it for one person, I'd kind of have to do it for everyone. And it takes a lot to do that. Something that I was seeing, though, because a lot of y'all do want autographed stuff, is that we could do autographs. The thing is, though, is that I probably have to charge extra just so that way we can make sure to limit the number of people who would end up wanting something autographed. Because autograph, and like the original time, the first time that we did it, the only time that we've autographed anything, which was the flags, that was a torturous process, honestly, because we didn't expect to sell as many flags as we did, and so we ended up with an endless hundreds of them that I had to end up hand signing each time. And also some people are saying print the signature, have it monogrammed. We can't do that. It wouldn't be authentic at that point. I want to make sure that it's something that's actually done physically by my hand. If anything is ever autographed, it should actually be autographed by hand. And so I would do it. It's just that we've got to find a way to limit the overall number of them. So that might be what we have to end up doing. It probably wouldn't be much. It would probably be like an extra... I don't know. We would have to figure that out later. But beyond that, I'm thinking about doing autographs again. It's just that it took so much effort, and on top of that, my hand was starting to cramp by like the 300 something flag, and then there were still hundreds left. That I was like, oh my god, I was like, this is actually really tough. And then my hand was hurting all the time, and I could hardly use it to type or anything like that. So I'll have to consider the autographing thing, but for now, nothing's being autographed. No mugs, no patches, no shirts. But if y'all ever find me in person and y'all have a shirt, and then you're like, hey, can I get your autograph? I will autograph your stuff in person. If I ever run into you and you just have something with you, I will autograph it. But hand autographing everything like we did with the flag, I don't think so. And either we will make it to where the autograph it's charged extra, or I just won't autograph any of them to make it kind of fair. But with that, I hope that does address that the best I can. And thank you so much once again for support and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Made in Canada 182, who puts in a $10 donation. And thank you very much, Made in Canada, for that support.
Hey!
They said, for the love of half the chat, can Andrew look up the definition of silo and then look up storage tank? As someone who works in a place that has silos and storage tanks, it kills me. LLT, LSA.
Let's see here. Silo. A tower or pit used on a farm to store grain. An underground chamber in which a guided missile is kept ready for firing. Those are that. And then let's see. What was the other one? A fuel, a storage tank or something like that?
A storage tank.
And a storage tank.
Of quadrotriticale.
let's see, a storage tank. Quattro triticale. The freaking tribbles are eating it. But let's see here. Storage tanks are containers that hold liquids or compressed gases. But hang on one second. I want to pull this up. Fuel silo. Let's see. What is a fuel silo? What is the difference in between a tank and a silo? Storage silos normally store solid materials in powder form rather than liquids. That's one explanation. But I have seen, let's see. I have seen in the past, and that's the reason why I call them fuel silos, is that I have seen in military books, books about the armed forces, that they have been called fuel silos. And it looks like that may be incorrect terminology, and I thank you for correcting that. So we will call them storage tanks from here forward. But I do thank you for support and clarifying that. I'm sorry to have been driving you crazy with that, but that's what I had read, and that's what I understood them to be called, was fuel silos, because they look a lot like silos, and they store fuel. But still, with that, thank you so much once again. I hope that does address that well. And with that, I hope that does address that the best I can. Also, I got distracted. I saw Juana McIntosh say, I think more people than Andrew suspects would be satisfied with a stamped signature. And then Maddie said, he won't listen. And no, I will not. Because, how, it's not special when it's, printed on or anything. It just isn't. I've gotten tons of stuff like that, and it just doesn't mean anything to me. We get a letter from the CEO of YouTube when we hit 100,000 subs. It's congrats, and it's got a pre-printed signature on the letter. It means nothing. If you could actually,
that hit me so deep in the heart when I saw that pre-printed signature. It hit me so deep. I was like, oh wow, yeah, I really love this one.
I was like, wow, they love me. But really though, I looked at that and I was like, meh, it's nothing. It's it was printed off a printer. No one even really looked at it or cared about it, and they just mailed it out. But when you get something hand signed, then you know that I actually looked at your flag for a moment and actually spent the time to hand sign it, which makes it a lot more special to me. And so, I hope that does address that well as to why I'm uncompromising on that, Juana, because, a lot of people probably would be okay with it being stamped, but me personally, I wouldn't be okay with it being stamped because, I want people to know that I value their purchase. I value them being a fan of the Lee Spring Army and the channel, and that I actually want to try and personally put in some of my own effort into something a lot more so than normal, like hand signing all of them. But with that, I hope that does address that the best I can. And thank you once again for support and helping this channel keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And this one is going to go to Fishing and Kayaking, who puts in a $5 donation. And thank you very much, Fishing and Kayaking, for that support. They said, "Slav Ukraine," and take a question from the chat.
And thank you so much for the support, and Slav Ukraine. And we will take a question from the live chat, Fishing and Kayaking. And thank you once again for being an old guard and always being here. And so, Matthew, what do we got?
This one goes to Justin Ramirez, who says, anything about Western countries reacting to Belarus's statement on ready-to-use tactical weapons?
I haven't heard anyone really reacting to it too much, which is kind of the bizarre part. We don't know why no one's really reacting to it. I guess we're just ignoring it until later or until we actually craft a response. But I haven't really heard any Western nations making any specific statements on it, to be quite honest. And so with that, I hope that does address that the best I can. Thank you so much, Fishing and Kayaking, for sponsoring that live chat and helping this channel to keep running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And this one is going to go to, actually, Fishing and Kayaking wanted a live chat question, so we're going to grab that one. This one goes to Kim Bennett, who says, after F-16s achieve air superiority, why not add some Warthogs? Flying tanks are never a bad thing, or would they be?
Flying tanks would be a bit of a bad thing. They'd be very fragile, and usually a tank has to be fairly durable to incoming fire, and a flying tank would probably have an inherent fragility about it, which wouldn't make it that good on the battlefield, in my opinion at least. I could be wrong. We have tried and attempted that in the past, but also to create a flying tank, the amount of energy you would need would be extreme, and it probably wouldn't be able to fly for too long, because tanks usually weigh dozens of tons. And so with that, I hope that does address that the best I can, at least in my opinion, with my limited knowledge on tank design. But still, thank you once again for the support and helping this channel keep running. I hope we addressed that well, and we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Nick, LSA, who puts in a $5 donation. He says, hello, Andrew and Matt, and please take one from the chat. LLT LSA. And thank you once again, Nick, for that support. And we appreciate it very much. I was trying to go back up here because I could have sworn we had one earlier from you, but I don't think I see it. Someone else said LLT LSA as well. So I think I got mixed up. But thank you very much, Nick. And Enforcer, what say you?
And thank you so much for the support, Nick. And long live the Lee Spring Army. The Lee Spring Army will never die. And thank you once again for helping this channel to keep on running and making this thing a possibility, not a possible. But with that, thank you so much once again. And Matthew, did he want a live chat?
So this live chat question goes to Vlogger, who says, North Korea is sending trash balloons. Do you think that they are trying to lower the guard of South Korea before sending those balloons with something more dangerous in the future? And that's what I actually said the other night. I said that they could be doing this to prime South Korea before they actually send something over, like, for example, a balloon filled with a pathogen or something like that. And that's why South Korea is sending out people in hazmat suits to try to check it out before the civilians get near it, in case that is the case. But Enforcer, what say you?
Yeah, I think they may be trying to do something like Matthew said. But luckily, the South Koreans are already smart enough that they pretty much cordon off the area and treat it as a hazmat situation every single time one of those balloons land. They wouldn't be dropping bombs on the South Koreans because that would be a really goofy way to start a war. Well, with the balloon, it would be a really goofy thing to do. So if anything, it may be some kind of a biological warfare attempt that may be tried in the future if they did it again. But it looks like the South Koreans already have a response that would greatly mitigate the possible risk or damage that would be caused to South Korea in the event of such an attack. And so with that, I hope that does address that the best I can. And thank you so much once again for support, Nick, in sponsoring that live chat. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And this one goes to CK Bold, who puts it in the regular 5 and says, take a live chat question. And thank you very much, CK, for that support as always. And the number 5 this time is going to go to Frostbright Productions, who says, does the F-16s that Ukraine is receiving, do they have radar capabilities to pick up the kamikaze drones that Russia has been using on the Ukrainian citizens?
I'm not really sure if they do. The drones are somewhat large, but I'm not really sure if an F-16's radar can pick that up. And I also do not know what the radar cross-section of a Shahed is. Apparently, it's big enough that it can be picked up from ground-based radar from the Ukrainian side, so I'd assume that the F-16 probably can, but I don't really have enough information to work off of to say that with certainty. But in my knowledge and understanding, they probably would be able to pick up those drones as long as they were at a high enough altitude above the tree line. Hell, honestly, they could probably pick it up above the tree line. But with that, I hope that does address that the best I can. And thank you once again, CK Bull, for sponsoring that live chat and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And this one goes to Jan Kerb, who puts in a $5 donation. And thank you very much, Jan, for that support. And please excuse the voice crack. And then Jan says, my first super here, great channel. Which U.S. state best fits the Ukraine region that is occupied by Russia, excluding Crimea? And thanks.
And thank you so much for the support. And thank you for enjoying the channel so much that you decided to support it for the first time ever. If I had to say that a single U.S. state was like Ukraine, I'd say it's Nebraska or Kansas. Which sounds really weird, but considering that Ukraine is mostly a large plain, and Nebraska and Kansas are also fairly similar, they're mostly a large plain as well, I feel like they would be the most analogous, at least in the terms of kind of the kind of environment and conditions that you would find in that area. Not only that, I think they occupy the same parallel. And let me check that world map with longitude and latitude. So let's go over here and let's take a look at this. Oh, come on. They didn't do that, right? Did they? Actually, the longitude and latitude of Ukraine is like the main Northern American border area. So I still think it's close. I would say that Kansas and Nebraska are probably the closest states I could think of to Ukraine. And so with that, I hope that does address that the best I can. And thank you so much once again for support and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and our next one is going to go to Made in Canada 182 once again, who puts in 10 this time. And thank you very much once again, Made in Canada, for that support. They said, I'm happy you guys read out and say, long live the LSA in a happy tone, because so many movies use long live the king when the king is about to lose his head. I still have the trauma from the Lion King scene.
Thank you so much for the support, Made in Canada 182. And long live the LSA is something that always should be said in a happy tone, because the Elite Spring Army will never die. It always will live an incredibly long life, and that's why we say it so happily, because the Elite Spring Army never did die. It continued to live even stronger than it did before, and that's why we're always so happy to say it, because it's really a triumphant statement of victory every time we say it, because there are a lot of people out there right now, and some people mention them in the live chat right now, who would have loved to have seen this channel and the Lee Spring Army disappear back in October of last year, that openly attacked this channel and decided to make enemies of us, although we really had no dealings with most of those people or really knew much about them. But they decided that they were going to attempt to try and destroy this channel, and even through that, and even through the damage that it caused, we've ended up rising out of the ashes, far greater and far grander than the channel had ever been in the past. We've entered a new golden age of the channel, and so when we say it with a load of pride, because I think of everything that we've gone through and how well the channel is going right now, and I know that the LSA will never die, and that's why I always say, long live the Elite Spring Army, the Elite Spring Army will never die, in such a happy tone, because it's a true statement. And it's something that I'm incredibly proud of. And so with that, thank you so much once again for support, Made in Canada 182. I hope that does address that well, and we are on to the next one.
All right, and also I saw someone right here in the live chat. I was sort of like intrigued by this. They said, I used to have beef with y'all, but I got used to your way of sending out info, LOL. Let's see, you come around in time. I understand. You might have listened to maybe some hot dog comments, perhaps, and maybe that led you down the wrong path, but he's reformed now. He's a part of the LSA. But if he becomes part of the cult of Matt, he's fully reformed. But thank you very much. I'm glad that the beef ended. But anyways, moving on.
Oh, man. But anyways, on to the next one.
You're cold?
No, I said it's a freaking cult.
Oh.
Playing on the joke?
Cult.
Yeah.
Yes. Our next one here goes to Andrea Fed, who puts in a 5 and does not leave a comment. But thank you very much, Andrea, as well, for that support.
Hey!
And Enforcer, what say you?
And I thank you, Andrea, for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. As it is, folks like you who help to make this thing possible. And so I got to thank you once again. I hope that does address that well. And we are on to the next one.
And we've got a 5 from David Richards, who says, I think that Skynet will join NATO, LOL. LSA.
And maybe, maybe it would join NATO. I don't know. Skynet is a very interesting and complex system. But still, thank you once again for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. Because it is folks like you who help to make this thing possible. And if it wasn't for folks like you, we wouldn't be able to ask hypothetical questions like that. And so with that, thank you greatly once again for support. And we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Omega 6000, who puts in a 5. And says, would it not be best for NATO nations to set up a NATO 2.0 with 70%/80% vote mandate to expel a NATO member that is acting Trojans?
I don't think so, because I think a lot of people wouldn't be on board with that, and not only that, it would show that the current NATO is incredibly weak, at least on a perspective that we would have to create a second one. So I would say probably, I don't think that would be a great idea. I think we ought to just keep the NATO we have and just deal with the system where no one can really get kicked out. Because NATO is a defensive pact. It's not necessarily about having everyone on the same page of agreement on things. It's just more so saying we will defend each other if we're all attacked. But with that, I hope that does address that well, and I thank you so much once again for support and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next one is going to go to LSA Master Sergeant Figment once again. It's Master Sergeant. He throws in a 5. It says that what North Korea should really be afraid of is BTS. It's basically NSYNC. Oh, NSYNC / Backstreet Boys. And they can understand. Thoughts? Take one from the chat, boys. And BTS, what is that? Is that a band?
It's some kind of a South Korean K-pop band. I forgot what they're really about. But I think it would pose a big risk to North Korea. I think it really would, LSA Sergeant Figment. Music is the biggest weapon against the North Koreans, because the sound of music is what the Koreans are really hungry for. Not food, but still with that, thank you so much once again for support. I hope that does address that the best I can. And of course, folks like you help to make this thing possible, and I thank you greatly for supporting this channel and continuing to help us to keep this thing running. And so with that, I hope that does address that the best I can. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And whoa, wait, we got one more from LSA Master Sergeant Figment. This is a 2. He says, LSA, hit the like button. That's an order.
and hit that like button. We've gotten up to 2,700 likes right now. We actually still have 4.5 thousand people watching. Hot dog is seething. But beyond that, I got to thank you so much once again for support. Again, for the third time tonight, LSA, Master Sergeant Figman, and helping this channel to keep on running. Because if it wasn't for folks like you, we wouldn't be able to be here tonight. And so with that, thank you so much once again. I hope that does address that well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And this one is going to go to Jennifer Bartia, who puts in a 2 and does not leave a comment. But thank you very much, Jennifer, for that support and helping to keep the channel running. And Enforcer, what are you saying?
And thank you so much for the support and helping this channel to keep them running, because it is folks like you who help to make this thing possible. And so with that, thank you once again, and we're on to the next one.
And with that, that is our last super chat to address. So once again, big thanks to everyone who's helped support the channel tonight and helped to keep us running, because of course, it is the viewers, which is y'all, which keeps the whole thing running. And with that, we're now jumping into our live chat questions. Now, first, we have the Morse code decoders of the stream. And it's Cliff Simonson, Mark Hodges, Earl Bernew, Paul Schultz, Kevin J, Rumpelstiltskin, David Millsaps, and Toxic Bananas. Excuse me. And they said, LSA Signal Corps checking in with the Morse report. Russia is getting into a pretty tough spot at the moment there to hold near Vovchansk, and long live the LSA.
And that's the sound of money, and y'all got that dead on the nail. That was the Morse code message of the night. I can congratulate y'all for getting that correct on the 832nd day of the war. Pretty impressive that y'all keep on getting that right day and day again, and it's wonderful to know that y'all got it correct again tonight. And so with that, I hope that does address that incredibly well. The best I can, as a matter of fact. And with that, we're going to be moving on to the live chats. But due to Matthew feeling a little bit under the weather, and also, I'm not going to lie, I've been feeling under the weather, I think, a little bit longer than him tonight. I was kind of starting to feel a little under the weather before the stream even started. I just didn't say anything. We are going to be answering live chat questions for the next 5 minutes, and then we're going to be rounding out tonight's stream so that way we can get off air and suffer in silence. And so with that, we're on to the first one.
All right, so this one is going to go to Robert S. Jordan. Excuse me, I apologize for the cough, y'all. I'm going downhill fast. Oh, I thought you were scared like what I was about to read. I was like, what? It's not that bad. But Robert said, Enforcer, are there Ukrainian troops or soldiers, like a hit squad, that's assassinating Russians and Iranians in Syria?
Not that I've heard of. I've heard rumors of that, but I don't really know if that's true, and also I don't know how they would get into Syria in reality. And so with that, I hope that does address that well, and we are on to the next one.
And this one goes to Philip V. LSA, who says, didn't France and Germany at first refuse to back up the USA in Afghanistan and Iraq? And if so, why?
Did he say France and the United Kingdom?
He said France and Germany.
I believe so. I believe you're correct. Britain followed us into Afghanistan and Iraq, but I believe the French opposed the invasions of Iraq and Afghanistan. I think the Germans were a little bit reluctant about it, or weren't big fans of it either. And so with that, I hope that does address that the best I can. And with that, we are on to the third to last question of the night.
And this one goes to Anani Mouse, who says, do you realize the percentage of computer chips that are made in Taiwan, because it's massive?
Yes, that's why we say it's such a strategic imperative to defend Taiwan from the Chinese, because they are such a big part of the modern semiconductor and computer industry that it would be a severe loss to the Western world collectively if Taiwan was to be taken by the Chinese and controlled by them, or if TSMC was blown up by the Taiwanese government when the Chinese invaded the island and it appeared that holding TSMC would no longer be possible. And so with that, I hope that does address that question the best I can, because we do know about that very well. And with that, we are on to the second to last question of the night.
And this one goes to Mike Zubrod, who says, how deep is the South China Sea, and can their subs hide there without detection?
Yes, the South China Sea is fairly deep. In some of its deepest areas, it is several miles deep, so submarines can operate in every single area of the South China Sea and stay pretty well concealed. Not only that, it's deep enough pretty much in all areas that the submarines can go below the thermal layer, which is where sonars really start to lose a lot of their efficiency, is once they pass through the thermal layer. So for the most part, yes, they actually would be able to hide in the South China Sea. All submarines would be able to for the most part. And so with that, I hope that does address that the best I can. And with that, we are on to the final question of the night. And so, who is the lucky last person to throw in the lucky last question of the night?
And that viewer is Joseph M. Sika, who says, I was wondering if you guys knew how many S-400 systems the Russians have on the front lines and how many total do they have. And great to be with you guys again. And it's good to see you, Joseph.
And it's good to see you, Joseph. And from what I know, we don't have an exact number of how many S-400 systems they have on the front lines at the moment, but I would assume that it's less than a few dozen, because they can't have that many. Usually they cover such a wide field, and having overlapping S-400s only gets so effective or so efficient until it becomes completely redundant to have that kind of a practice. So in my honest opinion, I believe it's less than a few dozen. To be quite honest, I would say it's really less than 7. But we don't really know for certain, because that kind of information is really hard to come by, and it's really hard to know exact Russian force compositions right behind the active front line, which is the first line. So we don't really know what happens in the second and third lines, or the fourth line. So I would say maybe 7 to a few dozen, but really more towards the lower end, towards 7 or 10. And so with that, I hope that does address that well, and we have reached the end of tonight's stream. I've got to thank everyone so much once again for watching. At the peak tonight, we reached an unbelievable 9.3 thousand people here, and 55,000 people have watched this stream before it ended, 2 hours and 49 minutes later. I've got to thank every single one of y'all so much once again for being a part of the stream, being a part of this channel, and being part of something that is truly incredible and unseen across the internet. It is folks like y'all who make covering this news so great, and it's wonderful to know that we have the honor of getting to come on air every single day and get to cover this news with y'all. We're terribly sorry that both of us aren't feeling that great. Matthew it sounds a little bit worse off than me, but to be honest, I've been kind of going through like heat flashes, best way to explain it, over the course of the stream, which let me know that I might not be in the best of shape right now, but we'll see how it goes overnight. But with that, we will see y'all tomorrow at 10 p.m. Eastern Time to cover the next 24 hours of the news of the war in Ukraine. And also, make sure to go to officialenforcerstore.com and get yourself some LSA t-shirts and patches if you haven't already. But with that, good night, good luck, stay safe, take care, long live the Lee Spring Army. The Lee Spring Army will never die, and good night.
And with that, folks, thank you all for another great stream tonight, and thank you for bearing with us while I struggle through this cold or whatever this is. Hopefully, I'm over it tonight. But with that, thank you all once again. Heroes Slava. Oh, wait a minute. Slava Ukraine. Heroes Slava. And we'll see you all tomorrow. And thank you all, and good night.
The Leaf Spring Army sends its